Yo. The date is September 11th, 1987, the day a new game would be released on the Nintendo Famicom, that game being Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei, translated into English roughly as Reincarnation of the Goddess. This game would be based on a novel series written by author Aya Nishitani and illustrated by Hiroyuki, focused on an intelligent high school student named Akemi Nakajima, who develops a computer program that allows you to summon demons from their realm. And while the game version of the story and the novel's version of the story differ quite a bit, both result eventually in demons springing forth from the digital realm into our own, with the game in particular having the likes of Lucifer himself and his horde of demons taking over, and it being up to both Akemi and his girlfriend Yumiko to travel into the vast subterranean labyrinth of Daedalus Tower to take on this horde of demons, defeat all of Lucifer's generals, and then finally defeat Lucifer himself so they can close the entrance that they've made to hell through this computer program. The novels are far, far more dark and depressing than the game, but both the novel series and the game adaptation by Atlus were a huge success over in Japan. Neither would end up making it over here into the West, primarily due to the fact that Nintendo's censorship over religious iconography and the like was so strict during this time, and so a game where you go against the likes of the actual Lucifer and various other demons that you yourself were able to summon through a computer program was, for obvious reasons, just never going to come over here, especially not during the peak of the Satanic Panic. However, Japan had no such qualms over such things, which eventually led to Atlus, again the developer of this Digital Devil Saga game on the Famicom, to develop a sequel to the game in 1990's Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei 2. However, instead of simply adapting Nishitani's work, the small development team over at Atlus began to tell their own stories with this core concept, following the story of an unnamed protagonist exploring a post-apocalyptic wasteland, battling and recruiting demons as they are pushed into taking part in a conflict between the demonic forces of Lucifer and the army of the one true god, Yahweh, once again to much critical acclaim. Atlus was an extremely small studio, and both of these games had suddenly launched them to new heights, giving them a lot of wiggle room with what they wanted to potentially do in the future. And it seemed almost logical that a third Megami Tensei game would be produced by them with all this overwhelming success. Which makes what happened next so very interesting. You see, the creative team that would end up creating both of these games would end up having far larger ambitions than perhaps even this book series could offer them. Lead programmer and director Koji Okada, also known as Cozy Okada, lead artist Kazumo Kaneko, lead writer and scenario worker Ryutaro Ito, and the composer Tsukasa Musuko all had a vision, one that would come to define not only their careers, but the world of video games as a whole. They had a vision for a game where your choices make a real difference upon the whole of the world. A game where gods and demons fight, of apocalypse and occult alike, but not in the realms of fantasy or far-off planets in the universes far away, but instead all taking place upon our own world, in the city of Tokyo. And that creative vision, that game, would come to be named Shin Megami Tensei. which is exactly the game that you and I are about to do a deep dive into today. I debated covering both of the original Digital Devil story games first, in addition to their novels, but I think that's best saved for another time, as while they are historically significant, it is Shin Megami Tensei that would come to be the game that would define not only this whole franchise, but also others like that of Persona, Devil Summoner, Soul Hackers, and so many other countless games to come. But even outside of their own franchise and spin-off scope, Shin Megami Tensei is a game that I think broadly has inspired so many other games and pieces of art since that its influence is rather daunting and is also rather taken for granted. And I say this because once you are aware of Shin Megami Tensei, you kind of see it everywhere. But truth be told, not many people are aware of Shin Megami Tensei, or at least not nearly as many as are aware of Persona, a series that, as popular and huge as it is a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, or SMT as we'll now be referring to it from now on. But really think about that. Persona 5, one of the most defining RPGs of the last decade. A game that so many have tried to replicate, that so many have analyzed and talked about and memed on. A game that was damn near inescapable at times. That game, as influential and significant as it is a sequel in a spin-off series of a larger series under the SMT umbrella. But of course, the reason not as many people over here are as aware of SMT as they are Persona is up until SMT 3, none of the SMT games got any kind of official release over here in the West whatsoever. While, on the other hand, the West has gotten every single Persona game that's ever been released, whereas we've sadly only gotten a fraction of the SMT games that have ever been released over here. Which results in most of us, if we ever want to play these games, these landmarks of gaming, you either have to learn how to read Japanese, or wait until the most dedicated and appreciated of the fandom translate these games into English through English patches. And that can be a slow process. But thankfully, that has been done to quite a few of the games by now, including of course the original that started it all, which while obviously extremely cool, is a real shame that this game, nor many of the others in the franchise, have ever officially been released over here in the West to any sort of capacity. Because when appreciating and looking at the history of JRPGs, video games, and even just Japanese influence on media and art and culture, Shin Megami Tensei is one of those blind spots that I think actually connects a lot of dots, even in some of the more dramatic shifts in style and storytelling, like in that of the Final Fantasy series, going from Final Fantasy VI to Final Fantasy VII, for example, is also one of the significant pieces in why I believe we began to see so much Judeo-Christian symbolism, iconography, and concepts within Japanese media, from video games to anime to even films throughout the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. And that's to say nothing of the new ground this game broke as far as its setting and the like goes, nor its carryover mechanics from its mother series with demon negotiation, its alignment system, and its story that refuses to give a black or white answer to moral questions. But perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. I mention all this to prepare you for the journey ahead as we deep dive into this game, its story, gameplay, development history, and overall mythos, so that firstly, you may come to appreciate the game for all that it is, and secondly, so that you might be more inclined to try it for yourself. And lastly, to those who are just curious or already fans of the games in the series, to enjoy the ride all the same, and maybe learn something you didn't know about it before if you're just a casual player. And if you're completely new to all this stuff and don't really know pretty much anything about SMT or any of this other stuff, don't worry, I'll hold your hand throughout. But all the same, prepare yourselves as we dive headfirst into the world of law and chaos, of angels and demons, of gods both true and false, and of the men and women caught in the middle. This is the complete Shin Megami Tensei Retrospective. So, the year is 1992, and in Japan, famous anime series like Sailor Moon and Yu Yu Hakusho began airing on TV. OVAs like Giant Robo the Animation and Tokyo Babylon were released. And in the world of video games, games like Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Final Fantasy V, Wolfenstein 3D, Super Mario Kart, Kirby's Dream Land, Pocky and Rocky, Ultima 7, Lunar and the Silver Star Story, and of course, everyone's favorite, Wally Bear and the No Gang would all be coming out this year. Meanwhile, the game studio of Atlus, they were busy working towards a Halloween release date for their next big ambitious project, hot off the success of their previous two Megami Tensei games. As per quoted from the Megaten Wiki, Shin Megami Tensei originally began development as Megami Tensei 3 and was initially intended to be a follow-up to the Megami Tensei games published by Namco for the Famicom. However, during development, Koji Okada and the president of Atlus, Naoya Harano, directly went to Namco's chairman, Masaya Nakamura, and asked permission to publish the game on their own. Nakamura readily agreed, presumably due to the friendship that he shared with Harano and Atlus owning the trademark to Megami Tensei prior to working with Namco. After this, the game's development changed direction, and all story connections to the previous two Megami Tensei games were dropped. This is important to note, as this game would be the very first completely Atlus-published game, and thus they were taking a far larger risk on it than they had done before by simply working under Namco. It also meant more creative freedom though, and more than that, it also represented a new chapter in the development team's lives. Something that is itself represented in the title of the game, Shin Megami Tensei. The Shin part can mean a few things. The first meaning of the word Shin is often new, as in it's a new Megami Tensei game, with a new story and a new vision. But Shin can also mean true/real, which the title also embodies, symbolizing the series' rebirth, and in aligning with the staff's true vision of the game. Development officially began in the fall of 1990, with the game being developed on the new Super Famicom, or Super Nintendo for everyone over in the West, which gave the team far more power to work with than they had available to them on the original Famicom system, or Nintendo Entertainment System, again for everyone in the West. With the Super Famicom, they could create a far larger game, have a soundtrack that encompasses an even greater sense of scale as well as atmosphere, but also, in particular, artist Kazuma Kaneko's art could be more easily translated to the game, allowing for his art style to shine all the more. An art style that broadly would come to define the series for quite some time, particularly with the demon designs, something which we'll go over in a bit more detail later on. Head writer Ryutaro Ito described Shin Megami Tensei's development as essentially being a remake of Digital Devil's story Megami Tensei 2, with the staff all being on the same page on what exactly the vision was going to be, which meant that the production progressed seamlessly. In fact, they barely had to have any meetings at all to match up character dialogue with artwork, as everyone inherently understood that the game's world was a dangerous and shady place. That shady place would be modern-day Tokyo, something which was actually quite the bold move of a creative choice back then. While there are many urban setting type RPGs these days, back in the 90s this was basically completely new territory for the genre. Most RPGs like that of Final Fantasy or Dragon's Quest, or Ultima, or Legend of Zelda if you want to count that one, all took place in fantasy worlds, often with generally medieval vibes. There was the occasional sci-fi fantasy type story, as seen in the Phantasy Star games for example, but an RPG that takes place in modern times here on Earth, in an established city no less, like Tokyo, it was, well, there wasn't anything like that in the genre up until this point. In the same interview with Ito, he would be asked why the starting part of the game would be Tokyo, in which he responded, quote, "By the time I joined the project, it was already set in stone that Tokyo would be the game's setting. This was decided by Mr. Suzuki and Mr. Kaneko. However, it was apparent that this decision had been influenced by manga such as Violence Jack, The Devilman, and Fist of the North Star," unquote. This is elaborated more upon by Koji Okada in an interview on the 4gamer.net, in which he remarks how he and Kazuma Kaneko felt it very important that this game about gods and demons and earth-shaking story developments take place in Tokyo, noting, quote, "That's a religious element to the worldview. But we were both born and raised in Tokyo, and that's exactly what Tokyo was like at the time. Looking at the world, there is no city with more variety. In the space of 100 years, there was the Meiji Restoration, the Great Kanto Earthquake, the Great Tokyo Air Raid. It was regenerated from a state close to zero to become this large city. I've been overseas many times for work, but nowhere is politics and entertainment concentrated on the scale of Tokyo. When I saw the 5-story pagoda at Sensoji Temple, I didn't think anything of it as a child, but now I feel it's amazing. Japan itself has always been open to anything in a way. For example, there was a time when religion was closed to the nation, but as a result, it has a mixture of Buddhism, Shinto, Christianity, and other religions. In the past, temples and shrines were together. In the first place, there is a belief that Shinto is not a religion. So if we investigate what are the roots of the Japanese people, it's becoming something like this. In Megami Tensei, I wanted to show that kind of thing. By bringing out the devil, it shows that the religion that came from India has changed and taken root in Japan. I didn't think about it that much at first, but that's what happened, and it became a topic I could never talk about in my lifetime," unquote. All of which are indeed things we're going to talk about in much more detail soon. Beyond this, however, the main development concept of this game would be the alignment system and ideological conflict. The basic idea from the start of development is that they wanted to have a law hero, a chaos hero, and a protagonist whose choices determine their alignment. Law represented order, divine authority, and sacrifice of freedom, while chaos represented liberty, strength, and natural selection. We'll be going into more detail on this later too, but what's important to understand about these different routes for the story is that they are not good versus evil choices, like in many other RPG games even to this day. There is no hero or villain playthrough of this game, but instead, there are player choices about the kind of world that they want to live in, how they wish to shape the world, and which philosophy you, the player, personally align with more, with all the good and bad sides of both of these choices. There is another option as well, but again, we'll discuss that later too. But already, you're probably starting to tell that there is a lot in this game that they are packing in. And that's also because, largely, the goal of Shin Megami Tensei was not just to tell a grand story with lots of player agency in said story, but its inception was set about with the goal of breaking gaming status quos in every way using its aesthetic and content, meaning they didn't accidentally come upon these creative choices. They made them knowing full well that they were different and untested, and that they may be divisive amongst a player base that they had no idea of knowing if they would enjoy or reject these core ideas and concepts. But they all had a story to tell, shaped from their own creative hearts and minds, and inspirations. And wouldn't you know it, Shin, as a word, can also mean heart and mind. So I suppose the title of Shin Megami Tensei represents all three of the major meanings of the word Shin, a kind of trinity, you might say, which, purposeful or not, I think is one of the most symbolic names the series could ever have. Because when it comes to the meaning of not just words, but ideas, concepts, symbolism, mythos, and story, it very often takes an every interpretation is significant type of approach when truly trying to come to understand Shin Megami Tensei as a series. But enough stalling around with the development of the game. Let's get into the meat of this and finally talk about the final product that was released on October 30th of 1992. In a quiet corner of the sprawling metropolis of Tokyo, specifically in the district of Kichiochi, lives a boy who lives with his mom and is about to have some super freaky ass dreams. This is where the game starts, as we traverse this trippy looking labyrinth, where we encounter a talking door, a boy crucified upon a cross, a boy tormented by a demon, and a mysterious woman. You shall come upon the door first, and it states plainly that it shall not let you pass until you've stated your name. This is where you name your protagonist. I just named him Dylan because, I'm the one playing, so yeah. After stating your name, the door shall ask you to distribute 18 points upon yourself. And if you're at all familiar with RPGs of this time, or even beyond, you'll know this is all about creating your build, giving you a bit of a head start. But before you go doing anything too crazy, I should note that our main protagonist cannot use magic in this game, nor is there ever any point where he will be able to use it either. So leveling up magic, as far as I'm aware, is pretty much completely fucking pointless for him. This can be a bit of a beginner's trap if you don't know this going in, but I suppose him having 0 MP points and nothing you do point distribution wise seems to raise it at all, I guess does clue you in that you probably shouldn't be leveling that up. This is, truth be told, mostly the illusion of choice, as you want to be leveling up your power, vitality, and speed mostly, because those will be the ones that are most useful to your protagonist you'll come to find. After this, however, you may proceed, and the next encounter you'll come across is the aforementioned crucified man, the strange little man or woman named only Servant of God standing beside them, and they will say unto you, quote, "This is the soul of one who was sacrificed by God. If you say his name, he will awaken. Please call out his name." Now, you can name this character anything you want, but personally, I named him Seth. Next, you will then come upon a man trampled down upon by a demon, which says unto you, quote, "This is the soul of one who thirsts for power. If you say his name, he will awaken. Go ahead, call out his name." And I decided to name this one Valentine, though there wasn't enough letters for that, so the name is missing an E. Both of these characters you'll also be able to distribute points to as well, but unlike us, they will be able to access magic, so you can be a bit more creative with them. But since we can't use magic, I would definitely invest in some magic in both of them, with Seth, or the crucified man, being in particular a good choice for that. Just saying. These two characters will end up being both the Law and Chaos heroes, but that will end up being the case for quite some time. Once this is done, both will join your team, and you will then encounter one last person, a woman bathing in a pool of spring water. She tells you that her name is Yuriko, and that she's been waiting for you for so long, and that she is your partner for eternity. Fucking yikes, but okay. Well, after this, you then are awoken by the sound of your mother calling you. You wake up from that strange dream, now in your normal little bedroom, listening to your mom nag at you, before you then notice that you've received a file on your computer, and you decide, like any good creepypasta protagonist, to go ahead and open that sus shit right now. Thankfully for you, though, this is no virus or creepy Sonic monster trying to devour you, and instead it's actually a program emailed to you from some guy named Steven, who has a message for you that says the following. To everyone on this network, a serious threat is closing in on humanity at this very moment. Legendary demons have been awakened from their slumber. They will soon be coming to attack us all. To fight back against these demons, you'll have to use the powers of the demons themselves. This program should let you do just that. I pray that some of you will be brave enough to download this file in order to fight against the demons and save humanity, unquote. Damn, getting right to the point, huh? Well, we do end up downloading this devil program, but we won't have to worry about that for just a little bit. For now, you can read more about this so-called demon summoning program, and then talk to your mom, who remarks how we must have slept well last night, and that she's surprised all the loud police sirens didn't wake us up. She says something big must have happened, but she herself isn't exactly aware what that big thing is. Still, she gives you your allowance and asks you to go and buy her a coffee at the cafe in the mall while you're out. After this, you'll finally have full control over your character and can explore around the city and locations a bit. Doing so, you'll probably take notice of your very cute dog that you have, as well as the neighbor's home having this doctor dude, who has a daughter who you'll soon come to find shares the exact same name as the girl in your dreams, who told you that you were meant to be together for eternity, Yuriko. The other thing that you'll no doubt notice is how the whole city is sectored off, with police officers in heavy armor telling you directly that the area is sealed off until a murder investigation is over. Interesting. Heading into the mall, you'll find several shops, including an antique shop that seems to be selling really expensive junk, a knife shop, and many others. You'll also come across several NPCs here, including a dude who notes how he also got the devil summoning program on DDSnet, but that it creeped him out so much that he deleted it immediately after. You'll also come across the aforementioned cafe, where one woman tells you a rumor that the doctor over at the hospital around here has gone completely nuts, or a girl telling you that apparently the person who was murdered in the park was one of your fellow classmates. Then, finally, you meet up with a different woman named Yuriko, this lady in a suit who says that she's happy to meet us again, that it's like a dream come true, before laughing ominously. And then before you leave, this dude tells you that there's a man going crazy behind the drugstore, and he's got a knife. Man, what the fuck is going on around here? Place is nuttier than squirrel shit. Well, exploring around a bit more, you do indeed find that man with a knife, and he ends up turning into a weird little creepy demon who lunges at you immediately and then scurries away, dropping his knife, which can now serve as your first weapon. If you try to explore around much more than this though, you'll find nothing but dead ends, blocked streets, or sealed doors. So back to your house you go, and when you get there, your mom is quick to tell you that there was a brutal murder in the park, which you'll have no doubt already learned about by now. And she reminds you to be careful, and to be sure to take your dog Pascal with us, and maybe as some extra protection. So we get some sleep after a long day of exploring and having people talk at us, and in our slumber we have yet another dream. In this dream, we meet with Seth and Valentine again, both of which remark how they too are asleep having dreams as well, and are ready to join up with you to see what this dream stores ahead. We move on ahead a bit more and once again see Yuriko, the same one that we saw at the cafe, fully revealing that she is indeed the one who was in our dreams before. She tells us that she will always be by my side, and to never forget that. We ignore her creepy ass and proceed ahead and see quite the grim sight. Cultists performing, as the game puts it, a strange ceremony. The priest calls out, quote, "Lord of darkness, deep in slumber,
we offer you this soul.
So they're trying to sacrifice this girl, and you now have the choice to either let them do this or stop them. We of course choose to stop them. This causes Valentine to panic since those dudes wearing the sick Neo-Atlantean drip have swords, and all three of us are unarmed. However, once the girl realizes that we are here to save her, she calls out to you to give her a name, and I name her Cynthia. Calling upon her name gets the cultists to leave or die or something, I don't really know, and then she thanks us for saving her. You can then distribute her power points as well, and just as a heads up, you really want to make sure you give her lots of magic and wisdom points. Trust. She then tells you that the two of you won't be able to meet up again for a while, but even when you do, you're fated to part ways again, but that you will also one day be reunited again. Okay then. So we wake up again, this time to find a new file on our computer, an auto mapping program. Again, we won't know what this is for until just a bit later. Once again, our neighborhood seems to still be quartered off, with the police being much more rude now if we approach them. However, there is one distinct difference now you'll come to see as you walk around the mall and streets here. There are now demons here ready to try and kill you, which will no doubt be some of your first real encounters with the battle system, which is all stuff that we're going to talk about in more detail later. All you need to know for now is this is a turn-based RPG, so if you know what that's like, you probably will understand what you're going to be doing here. Anywho, you'll eventually come across this dude who says there was a weird old man who was looking for me. Wish you can find said weird old man at this blockade that seems to be guarding this little house or mansion or something like that out in the woods. This old fella will tell you how you might be able to wield an immense power, and then says the following, quote, "Light and darkness, law and chaos. The balance of this world is beginning to crumble away. If it tilts to either side, it will eventually fall apart. What do you intend to do about it?" Unquote. He then requests that we show him that power of ours before we are whisked off into another dream sequence, where we are once more met with Seth and Valentine as we traverse some sort of building that ultimately leads to a vision of our mother telling us that we cannot proceed ahead, that she knows she can't stop us, but that she doesn't know what she'd be able to do without us. We proceed anyway into some sort of laboratory where a scientist is performing some sort of ceremony. A scientist performing a religious ceremony not being lost on me here, but we'll get back to that in a sec. He calls forth the brethren from the depths of the underworld, notices that we're here, and then tries to kill us since we've now seen too much. He is revealed to not be any mere scientist either, but that of Doman, the superhuman. Remember that name for later. I know it seems random, but trust me, we will be going deeper into it in a bit. Well, the three of us get our asses handed by this guy before the old man pulls you out of the dream and warns you that you are out of your league currently. But this meeting with Doman is fated to happen, so consider it a warning. Or in other words, the game is basically telling us we're gonna need to get stronger before we end up meeting with Doman for real. From here though, you'll be able to advance into the house that was blocked off before. Here you'll meet up with the first Heretic Manor. This is where you can fuse demons together. Think of it as a Velvet Room from the Persona games, but much more sci-fi looking. It, however, serves us no great purpose at the moment, since we do not have any demons to fuse. However, outside again, you'll no doubt notice that some of the blockade now has full-on soldiers here, barking at you that this area is under martial law. Well, fuck, that escalated fast. What's worse is when you go to try to get back to your house, a group of police officers recognize you and tell you that you're under arrest. And so into the slammer we go. Well, shit. We don't know what the fuck is going on, and we're stuck in the cell now. However, someone else is stuck in the cell with us. This dude in this sick-ass red leather jacket and with long hair. This guy is Seth, and he immediately recognizes you from the shared dreams the two of you and Valentine have had the last couple nights. He tells you that his girlfriend went missing and that he got attacked by demons while he was looking for her. His girlfriend is the girl next door to you, by the way. He was then arrested shortly after fighting those demons off, but he's on a mission to save his girlfriend and needs our help. You can choose to tell him yes or no, but I of course say yes and he joins our team afterward. However, shortly after, this doctor comes in and ominously tells us that it's time for us both to have our surgeries. However, Seth comes in clutch and kicks this guy's ass. Honestly, don't know what the doctor's plan was there, trying to convince two young men to not react that way after telling them he's gonna cut them open. Well, as it turns out, this is the hospital that one woman said had a crazy doctor running it before. And after exploring around a bit and fighting some demons, it's not long before we end up meeting this man in a bright red suit and wheelchair who is revealed to be Stephen. Oh, like Stephen Hawking. Haha. A very clever game. Hopefully this one didn't take any trips to any islands around here. Anyway, he tells you that he once worked on the development of the terminal station, a sort of teleportation device, but accidentally summoned demons while experimenting with it. He was able to defeat the demon thankfully, but just barely, and was critically injured during the fight, thus why he's in a wheelchair now. After that, he was able to develop a program that could turn demons into allies. However, he knows a man named Goto learned that the terminals were connected to the underworld, and now he's trying to use the terminals to summon and control the demons for himself. This is why Steven sent us and so many others the demon summoning program, because he figured that if more people were able to control demons, then perhaps those demons would not deluge the world in pandemonium. He then gives you an extra program that will allow you to record and analyze data from demons that we've defeated, see their weaknesses and abilities and what have you. Now, you'll no doubt have noticed he gave us a program, but we're not at our computer or anything, so how exactly are we meant to use this? Well, I suppose now is as good a time as any to showcase what our main character looks like, depending on if we're talking about the original concept art or the more modernized Kazuma Kaneko styles of the PS1 release a couple years later. You'll no doubt notice this strange thing on our protagonist's arm, as well as an eyepiece that you wear. And well, to summarize, this is basically a personal computer that you always have on you. It's never really explained in the game, but I suppose you really could just look at it as a kind of vision of a portable computer from back in the 90s, before the concept of smartphones or iPhones or any of this other stuff was really a thing. I suppose something like this, a arm piece with a keyboard and places to put new data or memory chips, or I guess floppy disks or something in that case, with a visor that allows you to see what's going on in your computer at all times, like a little miniature screen, I guess seemed like one plausible way that things could go. It does seem a little bit silly, or maybe a bit out there to most these days, but you gotta remember, computer technology in general was also really out there at this particular point in time, especially if we're talking about Japanese tech. And while I haven't brought this up, this game is supposed to take place slightly in the future for that time when the game came out as well. How exactly far into the future is never really said, but theoretically it would be around the time of now, perhaps? This is actually the in-universe reason for how we're able to summon demons from nothing, how we're able to map out areas as we explore them, and how you're able to analyze demons' data and what have you, because they're all stored in this portable little computer as data. Maybe that sounds a little esoteric, catching and summoning demons through a computer as data, and that's because it's, it is, but it's one of the holdovers from the original Megami Tensei novels and games, and a pretty cool holdover at that. See, you gotta understand the context when those novels were made. Computers were still not something that was easily available to everyone, and frankly speaking, no one knew what their limits were at that time. They were constantly being upgraded and being pushed more and more at the time, in what must have felt like something akin to magic to those who who had grown up without any of this in their life. Digital Devil Saga took that concept and sort of pulled it into its natural extreme. What if it was magic? What if there was some combination of numbers and code that could summon demons or open realms to the underworld? I know that seems pretty out there and frankly fucking dumb these days, but again, back then, understanding computers, this new technology, and how they work was not unlike that of learning truly esoteric knowledge, much like looking into the tomes and books of mythology and religions both old and new. And so Digital Devil Saga, and by extension Shin Megami Tensei, is taking that connection between the two, technology and the occult, computer code and religious text, and binding them together. But anyway, so you two fight through the hospital, finding more people in cells who are scared of having a body modification surgery, before eventually finding the hospital director's room. He asks us if we've had our body modification surgery, and after we tell him no, he surmises that if we're gonna not do what he says, then we must be a very wicked sort of person, declaring that he will remake us into his puppets, revealing his true form, that of Orias the Fallen. This is interesting because mythologically, Orias is a demon and a great marquise of hell, and the 59th spirit of the Ars Goetia. The Ars Goetia, also known as 72 Pillars, is a group comprised of 72 demonic spirits with exemplary strength and their own armies. Several more demons from this Ars Goetia will end up showing up here in the game as well, but Orias specifically is often described as a lion riding on a horse with a serpent's tail, and carrying with it in its right hand 2 great serpents hissing. Here in the game, he kinda looks like a weird cat person, and he is indeed riding a horse, but no snake stuff here at all. All the same, Orias mythologically is said to hold a dominion over transformation, prediction, sadism, prophecy, destruction, astrology, lust for death, honor, blood magic, and the location of treasure, which I guess in this context he's trying to transform people into his puppets. To what end, I don't really know, but it's creepy all the same, and we're gonna fucking cut his neck throat for it. Him being the first boss in the game. He goes down like a bitch, and then we have the key to leave this place. From here, if we head back to the mall, we can go into this area that normally have a bunch of Yakuza members. I guess I forgot to mention that. They just kind of tell you to fuck off if you come near them before this, so it wasn't that important. But now they appear to be beating up this dude, with Ozawa being the leader of this little group. We end up intervening, and they run off for now, leaving the young man there to say the following.
You scumbag. I'm not gonna lose to the likes of you. I refuse to lose.
Seth asks if he's okay, which pisses off the young man, as he bemoans that if he only had power, he wouldn't have needed us to come and help him. However, eventually he realizes that we're the same 2 people from his dreams, and it's here we realize that this dude in the sick-ass camo trench coat is in fact Valentine. He then begs us to let him join us, since he relents that if he's not able to even beat Ozawa and his gang, he'll never be able to beat the demons that are now infesting this place by himself. So now the dream team are together at last. But it's not all sunshine and roses, as when we head back home, we realize something terrible has happened. Our mom is glad to see us home, but insists that we come over to her, and when we hesitate, she acts even more weird, telling us that she has always loved us, and to hurry up and get over here. Both Seth and Valentine think this whole thing is rather fishy. And that's when the demon, who is now impersonating our mom, is kinda impressed, we could tell through its ruse, and says that it ate our mother, and that now it's gonna eat us.
Oh my god!
Holy shit, this mother eater is Amano Sakagami, or Amano Jaku. an Oni well known in Japan for his role in the fairy tale of the Yurikomi, or Princess Melon in English. In that dark folktale, it tells the story of a girl born from a melon who is adopted by a family, and then later, that melon girl lets a Monojaku into her house, ignorant of his intentions, and then he devours her and impersonates her using her flesh, which I suppose fits pretty well with what this thing just did to our mom. But man, what a fucked up little story. Wonder what the lesson of that story was. Maybe don't be a melon head and let demons into your house, I suppose. Anyway, he goes down like a bitch all the same. I guess without the element of surprise, there really wasn't much he could do. Killing this demon does give us an ID card though, that it was holding. And then both of our friends try and console us after the loss of our mother, with Seth encouraging us to stay strong, and Valentine instead hissing at Seth to leave us alone, that our mom was just killed, and that he should let us just simply mourn. We don't respond to either of them, but our dog Pascal wants to join us, so we let him join us as well. No time to mourn, it's time to use that ID card. Though first, if you go and check your computer, Steven will send us one more email letting us know that on full moons, no matter what we try to do, we cannot recruit demons when it's out in bloom. And that also, a demon will not join your side if your alignment differs from their own, which we'll talk about in more detail later on. We head over to this building called the Echo Building and use the ID card to get inside. And there we find the exact place where the three of us encountered Doman before in that vision, meaning that we had better start leveling up and start trying to recruit some demons to our side if we can. This place serves as a first real dungeon of the game, a place full of demons, many doors full of chests to open, and ever-elevating floors to traverse. Before we reach Doman again though, Yuriko will once again show up, ensuring us that we can face whatever pops ahead. How the hell does she keep popping up from nowhere? Well, never mind that. We must now face Doman, and fun fact, I'm pretty sure you are supposed to have at least a demon or two at this point in time. But I didn't have any for a reason I'll get to in a bit, but either way, Doman pops out and tells us he won't let us interfere with his plans to open up the portal to the underworld. And now we face our first, more difficult boss fight. Doman is based on the legend of Ashiya Doman, who is said to be a man who had a rivalry with Abe no Seme. Now, Abe no Seme and Doman were what you call onmyoji, or as the Wikipedia article in the topic notes, quote, literally yin and yang master, and was one of the official positions belonging to the Bureau of Onmyo of the Ministry of the Center under the Ritsurio system in ancient Japan, and was assigned as a technical officer in charge of divination and geomorphology based on the theory of the yin and yang 5 phases, unquote. Now that's a lot to throw on you, so I'll simplify it like this. They were kind of like yin and yang court wizards. A gross simplification, but you see, as divination, which again they were responsible for, is a practice in which one attempts to gain insight into a question or situation by way of a magical ritual or practice. Got that? Okay, so while Abe no Seme is considered a legend and is often depicted as a figure of justice, by contrast, Doman is often depicted as evil or corrupt. Doman was just as powerful as Seimei, but he often tried to embarrass Seimei so that he could usurp his position, but always would end up embarrassing himself when they had divination duels. There's more to it, including tales of Doman hexing people to die and what have you, but I mostly spent the time to tell you all that, to note that he was a figure who used divination for evil, which SMT cleverly equates to the use of technology, computer code for evil, equating computer code to that of divination. Since divination was a means of gaining insight through magical means, Using a computer is kind of like divination in that sense, but replace magic with fucking Google, I guess. Anyway, I just found that quite interesting, and once again, a cool blending of mythical concepts and technology in a way that I've yet to see anyone else point out. Also, design-wise, he's pretty interesting. He's got this like wild-ass cape coat thing going on, and I mean, from what I understand, Doman was just like a fucking like Japanese dude, so I suppose that would have been kind of boring design-wise, so I guess they kind of leaned into the like dark wizard or warlock type thing, and it's pretty cool. Anyway, we divinate his ass into pieces, and from here, we get access to that terminal, which doesn't seem to have any real purpose at first, before Pascal goes and growls at it, and then it teleports him out of the room. These terminals will work as our main save points in the game, as well as a fast travel to new and old areas. Using it to teleport takes us to this stranger new facility of sorts. In one of the rooms, we can see this zombie who apparently is actually a researcher who's just not looking so good. But he's wondering what's going on the outside. He explains that they were working on a secret project here, the terminal system, but that it all went wrong. They summoned demons who killed them all, and then turned them into zombies. Exploring around here more, you'll find Steven again, who will give you an upgrade to your demon summoning program by increasing computer memory to allow you to store more demons. Once you're done with that, you can leave this building and you'll find yourself in the city of Sendagaya. It's a much larger area than you were at before, with more dangerous demons to boot as well, so be well prepared for that. There are just straight up soldiers here too, that will try and ambush you and take you out. And speaking of that, it won't be long after exploring enough of this area when you realize more than just demon attacks are going on here. A total war is being waged currently between Goto's forces that have taken over the terminals in much of the city, and that of the United States Army, who is here to stop him. You can tell they're Americans because their text has a different font from the others, which is kind of a fun touch. This one dude says Goto has plans of making Japan into an ideal country through the use of summoning demons, but they of course think that he's crazy, which is fair enough. Though before you go siding with them on all of this, they also seem to have some ulterior motives, as you'll come to find. The Americans are being led by Ambassador Thorman, who they all say is a wonderful person. It's around here I finally was able to convince some demons to join my side, including a Pyrojack, Based. This one girl also notes how it seems like there is a group looking for any girl named Cynthia, which does not bode well for Seth's girlfriend, I guess. You can also see this giant TV screen broadcasting Commander Goto onto it, as he rather passionately declare what his plans for Japan are. Quote, "I am General Goto, and I'll be the one calling the shots now that martial law has been established. The civilizations of this world are festering, and it's because they were founded upon the exploitation of this land of Gaia. Prejudice, poverty, war. These things have now enveloped this world. We have awakened the old gods, the ones that some would call demons, to prepare for the true crisis ahead. There is a plan to obliterate Japan, and in order to stop that plan, we must borrow the power of the old gods." Unquote. And the speech goes on. Pretty wild shit. But in particular, the whole thing about there being a plan to destroy Japan, I wonder what he's talking about with that. Well, regardless, eventually we hear word of an underground resistance to all this stuff going on, and we go and meet up with them in their hideout and meet with their leader, Cynthia, who is the girl that we saved in that ritual in the dream, and the girl who the military is looking for. She goes on to tell us that she's been waiting for us here ever since we saved her from that ritual sacrifice in her dreams. She goes on to tell us stuff that we already know, that Goto is trying to summon demons to bring about the world he desires, and that the American Ambassador Thorman is here to stop him, but seems to be getting ready to take some pretty extreme measures. She asks that we help to stop them before Tokyo is destroyed, and first, we need to save all the girls who are abducted, or were abducted, for sharing the same name as her. She says we need to take down one of Goto's henchmen, Ozawa, as well. Both of these things just so happen to align with the goals of both Seth and Valentine, as we were all fated by all our struggles to meet here, it would seem. But then suddenly, Yuriko just fucking manifests from nothing and kidnaps the real Cynthia. So we rush to where they took her, only to see that they plan on performing a grand execution on her. Demons and soldiers standing side by side on a grand stage for her death. Yuriko calls out to the crowd that she has captured Cynthia for the grand crime of interfering with the mighty Goto's plans, and is sentenced to death for her crimes. Yuriko then beckons us to the stage and remarks how Cynthia will soon be dead, and that if we only had chosen her from the start, we wouldn't have to deal with this, nor would she have to deal with seeing the sadness in our eyes. Fucking okay. We then must face several waves of soldiers, and even a few packs of demons as well, until we've basically killed all the goons here. As the tides have turned clearly to our favor, Yuriko then escapes away, and we once again save Cynthia from certain death. Back at their headquarters, Cynthia thanks us and tells us where Seth's girlfriend is, as well as where Ozawa is. So Seth decides to leave our party for now and go and save his girlfriend before it's too late. Meanwhile, Valentine decides to join the resistance to go and face off against Ozawa now, which means both leave our party for the time being. Not sure why we couldn't have just done all those things all together, but whatever. But now that Cynthia sees we're all alone now, she asks if we could allow her to join us, and suggests that we meet with both the American ambassador Thorman and with General Goto to try and save Tokyo. She has fake ID cards that will gain us access into both places. So with that, it's time to talk to both of these figures who have been looming over us for quite some time now. You can actually meet whichever one you want first, but I chose Goto because I just felt it would be more interesting. And I really could not have been more right. I mean, just look at this dude. He's down to his fucking underwear holding a katana and seems about ready to fucking kill anything that flinches wrong. Also that, and that hairline is, well, it's something alright. A lot of the concept art seems to focus around this guy a lot too. And I especially like the one where he's just bare-assing it all while mingling with a demon. It's got a very strange energy to it, to say the least. And guess while we're on the topic, Goto was actually based on the Japanese novelist Yukio Mishima, a man who is all at once considered a great writer and a dangerous ultra-nationalist obsessed with death, beauty, and a romanticized vision of the past. At the core of Mishima's worldview was the belief that modern Japan had lost its soul after World War II. He believed Japan had become spiritually hollow, overly materialistic, and too influenced by Western values, following its defeat and American occupation. Mishima idolized older concepts of samurai honor and sacrifice, imperial loyalty, and physical discipline, and he admired the code of the Bushido, the warrior ethic associated with the samurai. While this was reflective in his novels, with them often focused on characters consumed by obsession, eroticism, purity, nationalism, or self-destruction, during the 1960s, Mishima became increasingly political and nationalist. He formed a private militia called Tatenokai, or Shield Society, made up largely of young students devoted to protecting the emperor and preserving traditional Japanese values. He was also extremely strange in that, while he was married with children, he seemed to have a lot of repressed homosexuality as general themes in his novels. He also frequented gay bars and seemed obsessed with the male physique, while at the same time seeing women as lesser beings. Moreover, I suppose it's kind of easy to see why this man would serve as a kind of inspiration for General Goto, as Mishima had sort of become an iconic figure for Japanese nationalism and the old Bushido way of the empire, something that was no doubt solidified with the public when on November 25th of 1970, Mishima and several members of his personal army entered a military headquarters in Tokyo and took a commander hostage. Mishima then stepped onto a balcony and delivered a speech urging soldiers to overthrow Japan's post-war government, restore imperial authority, and reject what he saw as national spiritual decay. The soldiers then proceeded to mock him instead of joining his cause. Realizing his appeal had failed, Mishima then returned inside and committed ritual suicide through seppuku, the traditional samurai act of disembowelment. The event horrified Japan and instantly became international news, leaving a kind of permanent mark as a symbol of Japanese nationalism. A man considered to be one of Japan's greatest authors by some, while at the same time becoming a symbol for fascism and perhaps the sins of the Japanese Empire. You might say his legacy is rather chaotic. And with that in mind, I suppose we should go ahead and get on to what our strange General Goto has to say upon our arrival. Welcome, everyone. I've been waiting for you. I am Goto. I have no doubt that you despise me after what happened to Cynthia. Still, I would like you to hear me out first. There is a plan underway at this very moment to build the 1,000-year kingdom under the name of God. They say those who live there are promised eternal peace. Yet only a handful will be allowed to enter that kingdom. Only a select few who have been chosen by God. The others, by the will of God, will be annihilated by the American military. But even now, in a place that is unknown to you, the gods of ancient times are shielding Japan from being struck by a missile attack. They are still weak, however. Would you please lend them your strength? I will give you some time to come up with your reply." Unquote. The American military being sent out to destroy people at the behest of God's chosen people. Interesting. Honestly though, after all the bravado and build-up, Goto was strangely rather calm, and even fair if what he says is true. If he is to be believed, then he is resisting a possible apocalypse situation through the use of demons, or the old gods as he put it, to stop Japan from being, like, fucking mega nuked. Again. But let's hear out Ambassador Thorman's side first, before we make a final choice. Our meeting with him and hearing his side goes something like this. Quote, "Welcome. Nice to meet ya. So glad you could come, everyone. I'm Ambassador Thorman. I've heard some rumors about you. I'm happy to have you here. We brought in the American military to help save you all from the demons. Unfortunately, they're still not strong enough. And there's an issue with General Goto. He is trying to summon the Dark Lord Lucifer, tyrant of the underworld. We have to take him down before he manages to do that. We don't stand a chance against the demons, but I know that you do. Please help us defeat Goto. With your help, we can bring peace back to Tokyo. We can restore it to its former glory." Unquote. Lucifer, huh? That doesn't exactly sound too good either. So here is where you can make a choice. You can choose to side with Ambassador Thorman, or you can choose to side with General Goto. A choice that the whole game has been slowly building up to by this point, and one that will no doubt say something about you and your priorities, since there really isn't a good or bad option. On one hand, Goto is literally summoning demons and Lucifer into the world. That, doesn't sound good, and it's unclear if he's actually fucking crazy or just passionate and reasonable. Since on the other hand, if Goto is to be believed, then Thorman and the American military are about to blow Japan up and bring about some sort of great purge or a 1,000-year kingdom. Who's lying? Are they both telling the truth? And if so, do you prefer demonic subjugation or total annihilation? Of course, in theory, you may all die due to the demons anyway, too, so both choices could lead to an inevitable death, no? One quick but sure, while the other might be slow but with a glimmer of hope, perhaps. I also find it interesting that both sides seem to insist that they are the underdog here, with Ambassador Thorman insisting that they simply do not have the means to stop Goto and his demon hordes without our help. Meanwhile, Goto seems to believe that he is the underdog and that the demons and him have no chance against the American government and what they have in store. Are they both lying here, or are they both telling the truth? Or is one lying and one telling the truth? It's not exactly clear. I point this choice out because while there will be more like it in the game, I think that this is the moment that Shin Megami Tensei stops being just a really well-made and interesting dungeon crawler and RPG, and turns into what I think often defines it. A game about moral, philosophical, and political debate. Now, in truth, I must note that while future entries in this series would have far more difficult and even more interesting choices like this, hell, even an SMT2 onward as well, for a Super Nintendo game at the time, this was pretty fucking wild. But then that does beg the question, which of these choices did I pick? Oh, well, I picked the third option. Yeah, it turns out there is at least one more option here. That's to tell them both to go fuck themselves, and not to give into either of them, which is what I did. But in case you're wondering, this choice is more about your alignment, be it that you choose to side with Goto and give into chaos, or side with Thorman and give into divine law, or you're like me and chose to try and stop them both. Though, as a little spoiler, the end result of all this will amount to the same conclusion. This could be considered a little disappointing to some, but it's more about putting you in that headspace given your options. What would you choose to do, given the choice between law, chaos, or fighting literally everyone? As a side note, there's an interview from 1992 where Koji Okada, Kazuma Kaneko, Seigo Aihara, Kuzunari Suzuki, and Yosuke Nino all sort of have a conversation about different stuff regarding the game. But in particular, the topic of what players chose more, law versus chaos versus neutral, was discussed, which I'll go ahead and read a bit from now. Quote, Okada, looking at the user feedback, there doesn't appear to be a dramatic leaning towards either law or chaos. There were actually a lot of players who followed the neutral path. Nino. It was pretty much 50-50 split between law and chaos. Okada. As with many RPGs, progressing through the game, selecting mostly positive choices, yes or no, will naturally lead you towards law. Think a little harder about your choices and how they might impact the world, and conversely, you may end up following the path of chaos. I feel like many players these days test out the negative choices first, which might account for the number of players which remain neutral throughout the game. Suzuki. I'm sure if players really went with their gut instinct, then we'd see a different outcome. Aihara. I received a call from a player saying, I've met Thorman and Goto. Which one of them should I kill? I've been sitting here thinking about it for the last 30 minutes and I just can't decide. Of course, I told them that the choice depends on you. I can't make it for you, unquote. Which is why for this retrospective and any future ones that I may do for SMT, I'll always just go with my gut, and we'll see which ending we end up getting by the end of it. Though to be fair, we'll discuss all the other options regardless and all the endings by the end of the video too. Anyway, as I said, all choices here are mostly to get you in the mind space of which option you want to take going forward. But they all lead to the same result. If you're looking for real difference in your choices, that will be a result by the end of the game. And we're just not there yet. So let's get to that result that we get regardless then, So I go and face Goto first. Well, after doing some grinding, because I wasn't exactly confident I was ready to take on both the demons of hell and the American military yet. So I went to get equipped with the best armor and weapons I could for both myself and Cynthia, and in that process, I found out the magic ticket to ensuring that you totally wreck the shit out of this game. A tool so powerful that it can carry even the most cornball-ass players through a decent chunk of this game. What, pray tell, is this magic tool? Some sort of unique demon or item hidden away someplace? No, my friends. That magic tool is a gun. Yeah, you can buy guns in this game, which I'll go over the mechanics again here very shortly, as to why they dominate shit so fucking hard. But for now, all you gotta know is that the gun often is mightier than the spell, at least early on. After that, I went about trying to convince as many demons as I could to my side, which again we'll go over the mechanics of that here in more detail shortly. But just know that it definitely took some trial and error to say the least. But once I got some good demons, I went to the Heretic Mansion and fused some of these guys together, including getting myself an angel on my side, as well as a Kanari Dire Fiend. Anywho, I summoned up my familiars and then faced off against Goto first. And upon telling him we are here to stop him, he tells us that our lives must end here then. He first summons up demons of his own for you to face, a few waves of them in fact, but if you've been exploring around and grinding a bit, they really aren't anything that you haven't seen before. Goto then faces you himself, and yeah, he's a pretty decent fight. I'm still not sure why he stripped down to his underwear for all this, but hey, that's his prerogative, I guess. Upon his defeat, he asks us but one more question. Do you not realize what will happen if I die? We then go and tell Ambassador Thorman we've already defeated Goto, which then causes lightning to flash into the room as Thorman reveals his true form, that of Thor, the Norse god. I guess his name Thorman was kind of a hint to that. Funnily enough, Thorman is a name that also sounds quite similar to the name Truman too, huh? As in like Harry S. Truman, the president who okayed the use of the nuclear bomb on Japan. Yeah, I suppose it's all starting to come together now. Thor praises us for our service on behalf of God, as in the Abrahamic God, and he then asks us if we will continue our service to God's bidding, and I choose to tell him no. He is shocked that we don't take him up on his offer, and then realizes that he must destroy us then. Now, I would go into detail about why Thor the God of Thunder is here, and what his lore is, but it's a little dense to go over here, and frankly it's, well, I think it's more interesting to note what Thor symbolizes in this game, that being a hammer of the law, of justice. His lightning and the power being equated to both that of the United States, as well as that of the nuclear bomb. I've heard some scoff or wonder why Thor, a Norse god, would be working under the Abrahamic god. But you need to remember what I said way back when we were discussing the development and inspiration for this game. That being Japan as this sort of melting pot of religions, of the old versus the new spirituality, and how often they mix and become a big soup in a way that is rather unique to Japan specifically. In that sense, this is just another example of that, and we'll be seeing more of that as we continue throughout the game. All the same, after we defeat Thor, the aforementioned fate that I said before could not be stopped no matter which choice we make comes true. A nuke is going to hit Tokyo, and everyone here will be wiped out of existence. A 30-second timer starts, but there is nothing that you can do but simply watch the timer run down as the screen turns to white. Cynthia calls out and says, "If I don't do anything, both of us will die, but I can save you at least." She then casts Report, and then we wake up to some old weirdo talking to us, his name being Ino Otsuno, who apparently was the founder of Shingendo, which is a syncretic religion incorporating aspects of Taoism, Shintoism, esoteric Buddhism, and traditional Japanese shamanism, meaning he's the founder of a religion that mixed a bunch of other religions together. I guess that makes sense why we're here, given what I was just talking about. So anyway, now that we're here, I'll skip ahead a bit because we basically need to find both Seth and Valentine here, who were also sent here for some reason. Once we find both of them and return back to Otsu, he asks us to go and bring him Soma from the spring here, if we want him to grant us access out of this spiritual place, and back into the real world. So we go and do that, and then he tells us that we need to go and get him one more cup of it after making that long trek. Which, by the way, this spring is all the way on the other fucking side of this extremely confusing maze of a place. Lazy fuck. Well, anyway, we go and do that, and then he tells us that we can keep that Soma, and now we need to face some trials, including fighting this blue ghost guy and this red ghost guy. This is mostly just here to make sure that we have indeed summoned demons and know how to use them and fuse them, because you get Seth and Valentine to do other stuff while you do that. And these bosses are pretty damn tough if you don't plan ahead and have some demons on your side, which is a pretty clever way of ensuring that the player is indeed engaging with this mechanic that maybe they have somehow been stubbornly not using up until this point. Then after all that back and forth stuff that took me about 2 hours, like I know I summarized all this, but this shit takes a bit, you, Seth, and Valentine are all allowed to finally leave this realm and re-enter the real world. But not before you fight these two as one last challenge, Zenki and Goki, who were providing you healing before this. But now they want to see what the combined powers of the three of us and some demons can really amount to before we go and face the real world again. In Japanese folklore, Zenki and Goki are a husband and wife pair of murderous bandit onis stopped by Emperor Tenmu of Japan. And yes, that means that this ugly thing is in fact a woman. Anyway, legend says that they were outwitted and actually convinced to reform themselves into ascetic disciples, them both becoming attendants of Ino Ozonu, which I guess kind of fits with this whole taming of demons thing, and why we would meet with Ino Ozu to begin with. He was a man who convinced demons to fight alongside him as servants, and this whole dungeon is kind of designed to ensure that you have indeed learned how to do that and master it by now, because if you don't, you will not be able to defeat the bosses here. It's all both mechanically, thematically, symbolically, and narratively teaching you that you need to utilize demons in order to face the real world ahead, or at least what's left of it.
Oh no, not the server! The server got nuked! No! Fuck! Fuck!
Yo, did you know there's a bonus video for this video you're watching right now available on my Patreon and for channel members for just $5? It's a review of the obscure and often forgotten but also super weird and pretty sick Shin Megami Tensei OVA Tokyo Revelations.
Fucking asshole, you planned to do this all along, didn't you? You were just using me all of this time, weren't you?
Whatever I was doing doesn't concern you now. Beat the shit out of the little cocksucker.
Making these huge passion project videos like these all by myself, from the research, writing, gameplay footage, recording, and editing is a lot of work, especially doing it in a timely manner. And sometimes after all that, the algorithm just doesn't cooperate with me at all. So if even just a few people join my Patreon every month, it really makes a huge difference to allow me to do this full time. In exchange for not only helping me, you will again get access to that bonus video, as well as extra early access to other videos that I make. Sometimes even a month ahead of everyone else, for just $5 a month. Or you can just buy the videos that you want outright for a one-time purchase if you prefer that. You can also get all these same things for becoming a channel member if you prefer that as well. And if you can't support me that way but still enjoy my stuff, As always, continue watching, like the video, subscribe, and be sure to hit that hype button. It all really makes a huge difference. Comment your thoughts, I always read each and every one of them. And be sure to share the video in places you think others may enjoy it. At any rate, I do want to take this opportunity to thank all of my current Patreon and channel members, including all of my Night Eggs and Night Owlets, as well as a super special thank you to all my great Night Owls, including Black Ghost 611, Patrick, Emil Ranoff, Fujoshi Cake, Anon, Hexmaniac Hannah, Spark Saturn 1731, and ATB Enjoyer, as well as a specialized super special thank you to all of my Arch Owls, including the Cute Cat Pick, UD Ranaz, the Daring Dark Pro Fox, the Bold Big Mango, the Stunning Somber Devontae 06, and the lovely Leanne Loves Christ. Thank you all so very much. Oh, and one more special thing. Big shout out and thank you to Patrice1706 for this super cool fan art that they made centered around me and World Goth Day. Both of these are super cool, and thank you so very much. But with that said, on with the show. So before we jump into the rest of the game's story and explore its post-apocalyptic world, I feel like we should back up just a bit and talk about the core mechanics of this game and how they're going to be evolving from this point onward. To start, if it was somehow not obvious by now, SMT is mostly a first-person dungeon crawler, where you venture through these, well, in the original SNES game, faux 3D spaces, and in the PS1 version, actual 3D spaces. While doing this, you'll come across treasure chests, various characters to talk to, item shops, and of course, random encounters with demons. Between these dungeons or spaces you explore, you also have the overworld, which in the starting act of the game are different parts of Tokyo, and in the rest of the game, it's the destroyed remains of Tokyo. When you explore in the overworld, it has a sort of GPS-like aesthetic, and an overhead view, which I suppose is meant to showcase that you're exploring over large swaths of area, giving a little bit more scale to the world. And in the overworld, there's obviously various buildings and points of interest, taking you into the aforementioned first-person spaces. Now, there are a lot of people whom selling them on traditional turn-based JRPGs is already a pretty hard sell, and this is an even more difficult sell, as number one, it's an older JRPG, and secondly, it's first person, which for whatever reason, I tend to notice a lot of people are off-put by. I suppose everyone has their reasons, but I suspect it's mostly out of a lack for trying this sort of game out. Maybe they perceive it as daunting or too different than what they're used to. And it's the reason you also very rarely ever see these first-person dungeon crawler games period anymore. I bring this up mostly because I do think many actually would enjoy these games if they gave them a proper chance. But if you need some convincing on this front, I guess I'll mention what I personally find to be the main appeal of this style of gameplay, that being the atmosphere, tension, and immersion. I believe the first-person perspective, if you allow it, gives you a sort of immersive POV into these places, allowing you to appreciate the atmosphere of the spaces, be they abandoned hospitals, posh and regal government buildings, the quiet coziness of a Japanese home, to far more crazy and extreme areas once the nukes drop, from factories overrun by robots looking to kill anything in their path, grungy underground malls where the remnants of society gather, try and pick up the pieces, and fight off the demons that they can, to grand cathedrals full of religious zealots, no matter their allegiance to law or chaos. All of it feels fully realized, and what's more, because of the demons that lay around every corner, as well as trapped floors and doors and even chests that can do you harm, impart ailments on you, or have you lose progress by falling through the floor, it all sort of builds on this tension that is not unlike that of a survival horror game, though you obviously are much more capable than perhaps many survival horror characters. All the same, there is a lot of resource management here though, from making sure that you have enough SP and health to continue fighting through this dungeon as you progress through them floor by floor, to a more specific mechanic that SMT in particular has. Because you see, while you have demons in your party to even the odds, It's important to remember that for every step you take, your magnetite goes down. Magnetite being the energy that gives demons the ability to take shape in the human realm. And the more demons you have in your party at once, the more magnetite goes down with your every step, meaning that you kind of want to make sure you only have demons out when you're ready for big fights. Or if you just have to have a full party of demons all the time, you're going to want to make sure that you go and grind a little bit to get more magnetite, which is something you can get from defeating demons or even convincing them to give you some if you're successfully able to befriend or intimidate them, which I suppose leads into the other main part of the gameplay, the battle system. A lot of people over the years have come to learn about SMT's press turn battle system, which, while amazing, is not here in this first game. Instead, we have a much more traditional turn-based battle system, but with some interesting quirks. First of all, you can have up to 6 party members at your disposal at any given time, which will usually consist of you, the heroine Cynthia, or whatever you named her, and 4 demons. While on the other hand, you can face up to like 8 or so enemies at one given time, but with a little caveat. See, while the sprites for these various demons and creatures are really stylish and well made, unless you're in a very specific battle against a fellow demon summoner or boss battle, you usually only face one enemy type at a time with each battle, meaning that if you're fighting Jack Frost or Mad Max style bikers or angels, you'll be facing them and only them in that battle. Sometimes when you defeat them, you will immediately be pulled into another battle with a different type of demon or enemy, but again, you'll still only be fighting just that one type of demon or enemy. This does, truth be told, mean that battles will not have as much variety as future entries, where you can face off against multiple types of demons at a time. But I won't say it makes battles boring by any means, as there is so much demon and enemy variety in the game that you'll be coming across something new constantly, each being a new demon or creature with their own abilities, strengths, and weaknesses. Another caveat to remember is, well, remember how I said you can face up to about 8 enemies or so at a time? Well, in these battles, you'll still only see one demon on screen, despite there actually being many of that same type that you're fighting. This can take a little bit to get used to if you're used to more visually being able to see everything that you're facing off against on screen, with say like the Persona games as an example, or again, later SMT games or even Final Fantasy and what have you. However, at the top of the screen, you will be able to see exactly how many of each demon there is based on these little gray dudes. These dudes will also indicate when you have successfully hit an enemy with a debuff or status element, as well as if they are close to dying. You and your demon friends also have these little gray dudes next to their names, as well, so that you can help keep track of who has been hit with a curse or is paralyzed or close to death, etc. Though there is an exact health number for them as well, so you can know exactly how much health you have left. Once again, I understand this battle system could seem a little bit archaic in its design and graphics, but trust me, if you start playing, it's easy to get used to and really get into a groove of things, especially if you're like me and really dive into the demon negotiation, fusion, and maxing out your party output type stuff. Let me explain. So obviously one of the biggest and most iconic mechanics of the Megami Tensei series is the ability to convince demons to come over to your side and fight for you. It's kind of like Pokemon, but it technically did it first. But there's also some very key differences here in this game as well. While Pokemons level up and many of them can even evolve, demons in SMT do not evolve and they do not level up here at all in this game. Meaning that what they are when you get them are what they're gonna be till the end of the game. So as you negotiate with more demons in the game, as you progress in the game, you will eventually need to either fuse new demons or negotiate with better demons in order to keep up pace with the ongoing rising level of difficulty and enemies and bosses that you'll be facing off against. The way you negotiate with demons is, truth be told, a little bit random, but stick with me for a sec. So when you encounter a demon, you have the option to talk to them rather than fight them, and at that point, you can either be friendly or intimidate them. Pro tip, if that demon is a higher level than you, then no matter what you say, that bitch will not join you. So it's usually best to either grind a bit, or be ready for that, or just fight it first so that you can see its exact level stats after you beat it the first time. Another tip, if you want to have it join you, choosing to be friendly is usually the best option. While if you're looking to get money or more magnetite out of a demon, then intimidating it is usually the better option in my experience. Something that becomes easier as you're several levels above some of these demons that you'll be fighting. From there, you will have to face several random questions and kind of try to either gain the demon's respect, flirt with it, or prove that you're strong or whatever. Though at times, they can just choose to take advantage of you and sneak attack you and have you fall for various tricks of theirs. It's honestly kind of just RNG for the most part, though there is also just a little bit of trial and error with it as well, and you'll eventually find there are certain options and things you can say to them that are usually the best for convincing them to join your side. Once you get them interested, they may ask for money or magnetite or random gems in return for joining with you. All of which is stuff you can get from either fighting demons or through exploration, so it all kind of feeds into each other. Once you've convinced a demon to join you can summon it and use all of its powers it's capable of right from the get-go. While negotiation is kind of random outside of full moons, they won't listen to you at all during full moons as signified by the moon cycle HUD element. Demon fusion is not random at all, and is where some real strategy can come into play, as you can choose to fuse either 2 demons or 3 demons together into more powerful demons for you to use, so long as you're the right level to summon it, of course. You can see what the results of every demon fusion will be before committing to any of them, so I suggest sort of looking at what combos you can make here, and in particular, take note of not just the traits like their health, SP, etc., but in particular what skills they have. Now, skills are different from magic attacks, in that magic attacks use SP, while demon skills don't use any SP whatsoever. Now, you would think given that, SP attacks would be always more powerful, while demon skills would be less so. And while sometimes this is the case, other times, depending on the demon, the exact opposite is true. Sometimes they have a really good spell that would have otherwise needed SP to use, and in this game, where random encounters are many and battles can be very tough, finding demons that can maximize their effectiveness through skills rather than SP outside of boss battles is a pretty big deal, at least I found. There is no wrong way to go about this, and how you choose to build up your party of demons will be up to you. But for me, I made sure to always have at least 2 or more demons that had non-SP using demon skills. In particular, status elements, which are extremely powerful in this game. How powerful, you may ask? Well, there are bosses and demons in this game that can bind you, or worse, charm you. These being status elements that there is no item you can fix them with. It can only be fixed by having them healed at specific healing areas, or just letting them slowly wear off, which seems to be, again, RNG based from what I could tell. I'm not gonna be pretty about this, y'all. This shit fucking twisted my balls into a knot. It knocked my teeth into next Tuesday, several times. If you get hit with this shit at the wrong time by the wrong enemy, it's fucking over. And more than that, it's legit just something you have to learn to get used to and account for. Well, that is, unless you use it on them first. Yeah, I played this game fucking dirty once I realized what the meta really was here. I would have a demon that has a charm skill, a demon that has a binding skill, a demon that sleeps, and a demon that shocks, all of which are status elements that are not guaranteed to hit, but since I'm launching 3 or 4 status elements onto an entire group of enemies at a time, the dice rolls just kind of play to my favor most of the time. And if they do hit and have all the demons or even most of the demons I'm fighting get hit with these status elements, then those demons lose their turns. And the funny part is, even if one of the demons is hit by a certain status element, it's still worth hitting them with another status element because the status elements stack on top of each other. Meaning these demons would be effectively boiled, buttered, and chopped fucking lobster on a silver platter for me to wail on with my big ass sword, and Cynthia to shoot with her gun, which also often had a status element bullet attached to it as well. Mix all this with them all being skill based, physical or bullet based attacks, meaning no one is using SP unnecessarily, meant there were times I could effectively turn on the auto battle and watch as demon after demon got fucking annihilated. Now mind you, this didn't often work with boss battles, which would need to be more traditionally fought with strategy. It also obviously takes a little bit of setup to even have a demon party like this to begin with. And what's more, in the later parts of the game did force me to have to adapt to the newer demons as the demons I had got weaker. But honestly, this core philosophy of get those fuckers throwing status effects so that they never or rarely get the chance to use their own turns got me through a ton of this game. And while that may sound boring, for me it was genuinely rewarding to find the most effective strategies like that. Not to mention, I still need to negotiate with as many demons as I could to keep up pace and shift my strategy slightly, as some demons at certain levels simply didn't have the skills that I needed for some time. I suppose I should note though, because you will inevitably be needing to negotiate and fuse new demons, buy better equipment and weapons, and keep your magnetite resources up, you will need to grind more to keep up pace. Something which I definitely did from time to time. Pro tip, you can use all your demons in the overworld and collect a ton of magnetite this way without ever actually using any of the magnetite, since it doesn't count as steps when it's in the overworld for some reason. Now obviously, some will stop me right here and say that the fact that you need to grind in this game makes it not something they want to play, or that possibly it's bad game design. To which I would say, if you don't like grinding at all, then fair enough. I can understand that sentiment, but personally for me, I do find it relaxing, especially if I'm slowly grinding towards a goal, or being able to fuse new demons, or buy new equipment, or make a boss battle easier. For me, it's all part of the core gameplay loop, and I personally never found any of it too boring or too much to deal with in SMT. For me, I felt SMT's level of grinding and what I was grinding for made it worth it and rather fun. Plus, I didn't always have to grind. I just wanted to because I really wanted to try some of the other stuff in the game, truth be told. However, if you're one of those who sort of thinks the mere concept of grinding in the game is bad gameplay design no matter how much or how little you have to do, all I can really say to you is that this game is probably not for you, nor RPGs, or I guess any game with a leveling system. Like I said, I can understand if you just don't like excessive grinding. I also do not enjoy excessive grinding. It can be very boring, kill the pacing of the story, and feel like needless padding if done in excess. But for me, a little bit of grinding in RPGs is just kind of part of the core gameplay, especially in a game where part of the point is to collect as many demons or monsters or whatever as you can. Of course you're going to be grinding a lot, you want to be able to use as many of them as you can. Not to mention, because you can have so many different demons at your disposal, grinding isn't always necessarily the best option. It's the easiest option, but you could just have the right demons on your side and kind of strategize around defeating bosses and what have you to the best of your ability. But if playing a game that forces you to play the game and engages with mechanics annoys you, I understand, even if you're a bitch who shits their pants and eats mayo for dessert. Beyond that though, this is pretty much SMT gameplay wise. What you see is what you get, but for what it's worth, to me the gameplay was quite addictive. The only other real gameplay mechanic of the game is one that we've already touched on, with the whole making choices for either law, chaos, or neutral paths. And while these three choices can kind of differ a bit depending on which game we're talking about, for Shin Megami Tensei 1 in particular, I think they can be summed up as this. Chaos is the choice for those who want to live in a world of pure individuality and ultimate freedom, without any law or sense of order, where the strongest thrive and the weak all fall behind. Whereas law is all about law and order, giving peace, tranquility, and order to the world to avoid all crime, where everyone is equal, but where you have no freedom, no individuality, and are now simply part of the collective, and without the ability to express yourself in any meaningful way. These two sides have often been compared to political movements, with chaos being the sort of extreme of libertarianism, going on into full anarcho-capitalism, or maybe just like anarchy period, depending on what game we're talking about. While law is often associated with socialism taken to its extreme, sort of a communist police state or National Socialist authoritarianism. Of course, there is the religious implications too, with chaos being more pagan while law being more Abrahamic in religion and its machinations. While this is more prevalent in future SMT games, it's still very much here as well, and I think is yet another showcase of that divide and mixing of cultures and ideas in Japan. I mean, you saw what happened. In this game, the US literally launches a nuke on Japan, and then they have to pick up the pieces and find out where they want to go culturally from here. Obviously, we have demons and shit and all that other stuff, but it's pretty obvious why these political and religious connotations are here, it being a kind of mirror of what Japan literally went through after the bombing and their subsequent surrender at the end of World War II. Of course, then there is neutral, which in of itself can have very many different meanings politically and religiously depending on which game we're looking at here. But in SMT1, the neutral path seems to be about striking a balance between these extreme ideas, and not allowing any one of these ideas to fully take over Japan, with it kind of representing the idea of the yin and yang, that life needs both light and dark, law and chaos, order and freedom. In order for both to thrive, one must never take over the other, is kind of how I think SMT1 sees the neutral path this time. Though there is a bit of a catch-22 here with all these choices that I think I'll save for talking about till the very end of the game. But I should also note that while you start out as neutral by default in the game, if you make more choices that are either law or chaos aligned, you will eventually be, well, either law or chaos aligned. Meaning two things. Your character icon on the GPS will rotate to one side or the other, rather than bopping back and forth like it normally does. And if you are, say, chaos aligned, then you won't be able to summon or recruit law-aligned demons anymore, or vice versa. Now, if you really want to live that lifestyle and pursue one or the other paths to their extremes, this does add a lot of immersion to the game. But if you want to have access to the biggest amount of demons and what have you, then staying neutral is your best bet, at least until you are ready to dedicate to a choice one way or another. Which, speaking of, let's dive back into the story and see where this journey takes us. So, as soon as you make your way into the light of the new day, a shabby-looking man asks you if you could offer him blessing with some money. You try to give him some, but he gets angry, saying that he can't do anything with this, that he needs Maka, meaning that our money is effectively useless now. This fucking homeless guy then calls us poor afterward, and points us in the direction of Shinjuku, suggesting that we become slaves to Ozawa. You know, the guy who was a Yakuza member who beat up Valentine before? Guess he's gotten a whole operation here in the aftermath of all this now. You'll then hear the voice of a woman calling out for you to help her, something which takes health away from you instantly upon hearing it. And every full moon from here on until you save her, you will hear this voice again and have some of your health taken away from you each time. That kinda sucks, but nothing that we can do about it right now. But obviously, while we are thrown into the post-apocalyptic wasteland, we already have 2 goals set out for us. You'll come across tons of demons out here in this wasteland, in addition to religious zealots for the law faction, and even fierce biker gangs all ready to try and kill you. Eventually you'll come to Shinjuku and find that everyone there seems to be mindless slaves to Ozawa, worshipping him, it would seem, though their devotion is not out of true loyalty, but rather because they have been brainwashed. Something you can discover if you venture into the basement here and fight off a Wendigo. You'll find this man locked up in a cell who explains that he has been forced to work for Ozawa. This dude's a soul diver, meaning he can jump into a person's soul and fiddle around with it until they effectively are brainwashed and without proper free will anymore, which Ozawa has used on people here. This dude would fight back, but Ozawa apparently made a deal with the devil, and well, it wouldn't be very smart to defy him now. However, the man does notice that there is something off about our soul in particular, and that is probably because our partner, or other half, Cynthia, is in trouble, and he suggests that we hurry and rescue her. We can actually find her in another building locked up, but sadly she is completely unresponsive to us. And that is because she is currently being possessed by a demon, trying to mess around for soul. So we're going to need the soul diver to help us save her. But in order to save the soul diver, in order to save Cynthia, we're going to need to go and beat up Ozawa first. We also get lore from this one dude that not everyone here is brainwashed, because some do exactly what Ozawa says, because if they do, they can stay here, in this city, where demons cannot enter. This all being part of a deal with the devil that Ozawa made apparently. And he of course has private police that get to do what they want and enforce Ozawa's law upon everyone. In a way, you might say this little area, Shinjuku, is a microcosm of how the law path can be easily corrupted by those in power. How it can effectively just be a big bully with a big bully squad to subjugate his people to his will, stripping them of their free will if they dare to defy him. In exchange though, for stripping them of their free will or ability to fight back, they get to live in a society safe from the dangers of demons or the outside world, and thus they get to enjoy life without fear, so long as they obey. It's everything that the law side represents without any of the god and angel stuff. Anyway, so we eventually go and meet Ozawa in his office, and Valentine tells him that he hasn't changed at all, that he still forces the weak to do whatever he wants. That is the only method of control that he knows. Ozawa is amused by this and simply tells him that it doesn't matter. If you obey his law, you will survive in this wasteland of a world. Valentine isn't buying it and tells him to shut his mouth. Ozawa, finally done with being tested upon, calls Master Taki Minakata to get rid of these pesky brats. This, however, doesn't go well for the party, as they end up getting their ass handed to them pretty quickly, and choose to run away for now. And on the way out of there, this is when Valentine says the following, quote,
I'll need a lot more power if I'm going to defeat Ozawa. I know. The power of demons. I'll put the power of demons directly inside of me.
To which Seth says, what are you saying? If you fuse with a demon, Valentine, you won't be human anymore. Even if you could easily beat him by doing that, what would be the point? To which Valentine simply says,
there's no way you would ever understand, Seth.
So yeah, it's time to fuse Valentine with a demon, to which Valentine notes, not only will he be able to finally defeat Ozawa, but he will be able to fight and survive in this world. And he does indeed fuse with a demon, now becoming a half demon, half human, in this samurai-like getup. Happy he has the power that he needs to finally never lose to anyone again. So then we make our way back up to Ozawa's office, and now with Valentine's extra power, we have what we need to face Takiminakata. Takiminakata is a Shinto deity from Japanese mythology, most prominently featured in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, the oldest chronicles of Japan. He is best known as a god of wind, water, agriculture, and hunting. Takiminakata is the son of Okuni Nushi, the ruler of the earthly realm. When the thunder god Taki Mikazuchi descends from the heaven to claim the land, most gods submit, but Takiminakata resists. He challenges Takimikazuchi to a test of strength, often described as a proto-sumo match. Takiminakata ultimately loses though decisively and flees to the Suwa region, where he is ultimately subdued, but allowed to remain as a local deity. This myth is sometimes interpreted as a symbolic story of central authority, or the Yamato state, subduing regional powers. And as far as his use here, I believe him specifically ruling here with Ozawa in Shinjuku is meant to represent how he eventually became rooted to a specific place, rather than ruling broadly. And while Ozawa's area broadly represents a microcosm of the faults of the law path, it does in some way also resist the outside world, the broader law of God in the new world. A small piece of consolidated power created as a consequence of a thunder god arriving to Earth. That being Thor in this case, instead of Takemikazuchi. But anywho, through our abilities, and in particular Valentine's new demonic powers, we are able to handily defeat Takiminakata, leaving Ozawa rather baffled and scared of the aftermath. Ozawa admits that he was wrong and pleads with you to spare his life. He heals your wounds with recovery magic as a gesture of goodwill, and asks if that will be enough. You then have the option to finish off Ozawa or spare him. Hard choice. I mean, on one hand, nah, just kidding. Ozawa played God with people's free wills, and after all,
humans who would dare to play God must pay a steep price for their arrogance. That is truth.
Valentine asks if he himself can finish him off. And since he's had this vengeance against Ozawa for like, how many years in the future did we end up jumping to? Decades in the making, I guess? I go ahead and allow him to have the final blow. However, despite this, and pretty much doing what I assume a Valentine would want, he then tells both Seth and I that we act way too naive, and that we'll never be able to survive in this world, and that with all the power from this new fusion that he has, that he doesn't need us anymore. And so he runs off, leaving our party for good now. Damn, whatever I guess. Now that Ozawa is defeated though, Shinjuku has demons invade it like any other place as well, which I suppose that was the price for freedom. So we go and save the soul diver, and then bring him to Cynthia, and he says that there is something deep inside her soul that torments her, and is slowly trying to take her over completely. And so we're gonna have to go deep inside her soul to free her from this entity. Her soul is a pretty trippy looking dungeon, not unlike the strange dreams that open the game. At the end of this dungeon, we see this spider woman with what looks to be a spider web holding her aloft, coming right from her butthole, no less, which is interesting. To add insult to injury, this boss is pretty tough too, mostly because she has charm spells, which, as I said before, can really mess you up in your team, since there's no easy way to get rid of it, at the very least in the heat of battle. Her name is Arachne, a figure from Greek mythology, most famously told in Metamorphosis by the Roman poet Ovid. She was a mortal woman of extraordinary skill in weaving, whose talent rivaled, even surpassed, that of the goddess Athena, the patron of wisdom and crafts. So the story goes, Arachne becomes renowned across Greece for her unmatched weaving. She boldly claims that her skill is greater than Athena's, refusing to credit the goddess. Athena, disguised as an old woman, warns her to show humility, but Arachne refuses. The two then engage in a weaving contest. Athena's work depicts the glory of the gods and the punishment of mortals who challenge them. Arachne's work is technically flawless, but daringly portrays the gods' flaws, deceptions, and immoral acts. Enraged, either by the insult or by being outdone, Athena destroys Arachne's tapestry. In despair, Arachne hangs herself, or is about to, when Athena transforms her into a spider, condemning her to weave forever. Now, that's interesting. However, Arachne's use here as a soul spider weaving into the soul of Cynthia is a little less clear as to why she has chosen her of all people. I mean, I guess the most easy answer is that Cynthia was a body that she could use to possess and become human once again, defying a god yet again to escape her punishment. Either way though, we squash her spider ass, after leveling up some more and getting better demons than what I had before, because when I originally faced her, it didn't go very well. Saving Cynthia finally, she notes how she actually died when the nukes dropped, but was then reincarnated into this world. She says she forgot everything else that happened in her previous life, but the one thing she didn't forget was us. Her fate is to walk beside us. Damn, girl laying it on kinda thick, huh? Alright, I guess I'll let you hang around, I guess. Whatever. So she joins our party, and then it's on to the city of Roppongi, a city that has a barrier around it to keep the demons out. The denizens here tell us that Mr. Red and Mr. Black, who set up the barrier around Roppongi, apparently rule here, though one woman in particular wonders, quote, if they're just a couple of pedophiles who are trying to put on the airs though, unquote. Well, fuck. Real, I guess, but I wonder what makes her say that. What exactly did we get ourselves into by sneaking into this place? Well, this place does have a bar where you can drink all day and get some cool status effects. But also something strange seems to be going on here, as apparently a girl who is also named Cynthia is currently locked up in the prison here, because she was possessed by a demon. Well, that Cynthia is actually Seth's girlfriend from before, who is still somehow a teenager after all these years? This doesn't look too good. Well, she tells us to stay away from her, and says that Count Red and Count Black used magic to bring this dead town to life. They turned her into a Bodyconian too, but she was apparently the only one who never forgot her days as a human, which is why they say she's been possessed by a demon, and as a Bodyconian, she can never die. And if you're wondering what a Bodyconian is, it's basically a kind of deathless soul trapped in an artificial body. Something similar to a vampire of sorts, I guess. She then asks to please find us a revival incense, which will finally end her suffering. All of which is rather depressing, though I was a little disappointed that it didn't seem like Seth had a whole lot to say during this conversation. You would think he would have tried to have fought against this somehow or had something, but he doesn't seem to fucking say anything, so that's bizarre. Well, if we explore around a bit more of this place, we can end up meeting up with a young girl named Alice. She asks us where we came from, and then she asks if we like this town, and if we can be her toys. She says Mr. Red and Mr. Black made this town for her, and suggests that we go and meet Mr. Red right now, which we go and do. Count Red then is happy to meet us, and tells us that this town was built so that Alice could live without any problems. A barrier prevents her from being attacked by demons, and his only wish is to make her happy. Alice then asks you a question. She asks you if you could buy her a hexagram, something that you can buy at many of the shops. I already had one, so I just go ahead and give it to her. She then asks for one more thing of us. She asks us if we would die for her. That escalated quickly. I of course told her no, and this causes her to start crying, that you won't listen to her, and she calls Mr. Red that we're not listening to her. She says that she wants us to stay with her forever, and that's why she asked if we would die for her, but we refused, meaning that she wants us to be a Bodyconian too, I guess, to live here and play with her forever. This city is starting to feel more and more like her big playhouse. Count Red, of course, makes sure that Alice gets what she wants, and reveals his true form in this super cool dragon looking thing with a fucking face on the front of it. His true name being that of Belial, the Dark Tyrant. Belial is a figure whose meaning shifts across religious history, evolving from the concept of worthlessness or lawlessness into a powerful demonic entity in later traditions. He appears in early Hebrew texts, apocryphal writings, and medieval demonology. In the Hebrew Bible, Belial, from a Hebrew's term meaning without worth or without law, is not originally a person. The phrase sons of Belial refers to corrupt individuals, lawless or wicked people. It functions more like a label for moral decay than a named being of any sort. At this stage, Belial represents human corruption, not a demon. Over time though, especially in Jewish apocrypha texts, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, Belial becomes a leader of evil forces, an opponent of divine order, and a figure associated with darkness, deceit, and rebellion. Now, with that being said, you might wonder, why is this powerful, evil, corrupt entity then doing the bidding of this little girl named Alice then? Is she like Alice from Alice in Wonderland? Well, while she bears a striking similarity, Alice is more so an original concept for Shin Megami Tensei, and less the Alice from the book. Alice is actually a dead girl who was resurrected by Belial and Mr. Black, who we'll reveal the true identity of shortly. After the nukes hit, they both found Alice's corpse and were taken by her, so they resurrected her and became her uncles, and then resurrected more people to populate the city of Ronpongi to give her friends to play with. And, well, let's get through the rest of this Ronpongi story arc, and I'll explain what I think all this symbolizes and how it all ties together. So, Belial is no fucking joke. In fact, he basically beats our heads in, as we can actually do no damage to him of any sort. We're gonna need a different means of defeating him. If we go and explore the underground sections of the city, we can eventually find Count Black down there, who basically just tells us that everyone enjoys life here. However, if you advance further, you can find a room protected by several heavy damage floor tiles, with a chest containing an item called the Glancing Pod. This Glancing Pod is exactly what we need to take down Belial. But what exactly is the Glancing Pod? And what does it symbolize? I don't fucking know. Like, no, I looked it up and tried finding any mythological connection or religious or philosophical concept, but couldn't seem to find any. It seems to function as a pot that sucks up evil entities, I guess, but if it is alluding to some sort of mythological object from some sort of religion or something, I couldn't seem to find any reference to it. So, if anyone happens to know what this may be, please let me know in the comments down below, even if it's just a theory. But anywho, we go and face Belial again, and he sees that we now have the Glancing Pod, and is immediately sealed inside of it as soon as we get to him. There's not even really a boss fight, he's just sucked up into there instantly. I don't know how or why, but that takes care of him, I guess. Makes you wonder why he even had that fucking pot inside the city to begin with. Could have just thrown it at the bottom of the ocean or something. Maybe it's like important to him somehow? I don't know. Alice cries now that Mr. Red is gone, before eventually disappearing herself. You know, even though she wants us to die, I can't help but feel just a little bit bad for her. She was an innocent girl who died in a bombing attack. Or hell, maybe she didn't even die by the initial attack, instead died from starvation or something, as she tried to survive in the world alone in the aftermath. After all, Count Red and Black did say that they were taken by her when they found her dead, which means I imagine she was not blown to pieces, and so she died in this cruel world alone, only to then be brought back to life by two powerful demons who built this place to protect her for some sort of reason. She was then taught to believe that death means eternal life, and now that Count Red is gone, and soon to be Count Black, she is kind of a lost soul now, cursed to eternal life without a soul to attach to. Yuriko then shows up, telling us how we've done a job well done, but chastising us for making a little girl cry. She then asks us to give her that pot with Belial in it, and I tell her to go kick rocks. But she ends up getting her way in the end after casting Shibu on us, paralyzing the entire fucking party. Fuck. Well, then we see Count Black face us, asking us if we know what we've done, that we crushed a girl's simple dream, and that all he and Belial wanted was to see that girl smile. Seth then remarks that for that simple goal, that simple dream, they are willing to kill countless people and enslave all their souls. To which Count Black basically says,
Yes?
Count Black decides he's going to take all of our souls and make us become Bodiconians. But when he grabs for us, he's only successful in grabbing Seth, him now having his soul. Now that Count Red is gone too, if you go and visit the bar area, you'll see that everyone who once looked to be human now looks like demons, their true forms revealed. You can also find Seth's soul, but without a body. He says that Count Black is gathering souls here and converting them into energy, and pleads for us to help him. So now we gotta go and defeat Count Black, who reveals his true form to be that of Nibiros, the Fallen. Nibiros is another demon from the Arsh Goetia. He is described as a Marquise of Hell, commanding multiple legions of spirits. He is usually depicted as a three-headed dog, strongly resembling Cerberus, sometimes depicted with crow or raven-like voice, a being associated with knowledge, cunning, and rhetoric, often teaching the art of rhetoric and persuasion, restoring lost honors or reputations, revealing hidden things, including treasures or secrets, and offering knowledge of herbs, metals, and practical sciences. Here he, looks like some guy with tattoos with a fucking cloak. Not exactly as cool of a design if you ask me, considering what he could have looked like. Nevertheless, now that we have all the pieces here, I do want to say that this whole Roppongi City story, I think, is meant to represent a microcosm of chaos. While this might seem confusing at first, with this city also having what amounts to dictators too, this is quite a bit different from Shinjuku. This is a city run by two powerful demons from hell, both of whom are killing and reviving people at the behest of a child's whims, because they want to see her smile. Notice how they don't want to build a world that is good for her, or teach her in any meaningful way. What they give her is anything she wants, with no regard for others' lives because of it. It's a city ruled by blind, innocent chaos in that sense. Maybe these demons really think what they are doing is right, and that this in a way is the best way forward for humanity, for them to be empowered, and for the strong to play with the weak. The irony here being that Alice is just a little girl, perhaps one of the weakest of this world, and yet in the context of Roppongi, she is the most powerful entity here, and everything else is her playthings because of it. Roppongi is a microcosm of chaos, in that it represents what chaos inside a bubble looks like. Truth be told, if you want to see the full effects of chaos, it looks kind of like the whole overworld that we've been wandering through. But on a smaller scale, is a little girl being allowed to have any wish granted, no matter the consequences of those wishes. It is also the opposite of things being done for the collective, it all being done for the happiness of one individual. Anywho, we defeat Nibiros, and then Seth thanks us for freeing his soul, and that he'll now be able to pass on into the afterlife, as he evaporates into nothing. Suddenly, then, the servant of God from the very start of the game appears before us, saying, quote, "Seth truly possesses a devoted soul. He is worthy to be sent before God." And in case you didn't catch that, this is not the last we've seen of Seth. Just as Valentine struck out on his own path, after finishing off the microcosm that is the law, Valentine representing the path of chaos, so too will Seth take on his own, after us finishing the microcosm of chaos, with Seth now representing the path of the law. On our way out of this city, we run into the guy who we actually came across back in Shinjuku, who used to be living there because it was a place safe from demons, but then hightailed it out of there after we kinda made that not the case anymore. And now he's here in Roppongi because he heard it was a great place to go, but sees that there's only zombies creeping around here again, thanks to us. Poor guy can't catch a break. Though we did technically save him from becoming one of those zombies too, I guess. Anywho, we then walk into a subway tunnel that has a crossroads, with us coming from one end and there being three paths laid before us. which we can actually venture into any order that we wish, though it's important to understand that each path represents a different story path, potentially anyway. See, as we come to the crossroads, Seth's spirit comes before us and asks us a favor. He tells us that someone is using the old Tokyo Police Department building to control a squad of robot police officers, and he asks that we go and put a stop to it. Steven is also here, and, wait, how the fuck did Steven survive the cataclysm? Well, anyway, he'll upgrade your tech once more so that you can finally, from this point onward, summon 4 demons into your party at once. The other paths here lead to the headquarters associated with the Law faction, or the Messians, and the Chaos faction, or the Gaians. But for now, we might as well deal with the police station full of robots, since there's no real commitments in just doing that real quick. On our way there, we do come across a set of TVs that show the message of the Messianic Faith faction, reporting on how someone defeated Ozawa in Shinjuku, and how this was divine judgment, and how God is always watching over us. We also see that hooded dude from before, who notes how both the Messians and the Gaians seem to be talking about how they're both just trying to save humanity, that they both are trying to work towards a better future. But in his opinion, it kinda seems like both are just causing more needless conflict. So we get to the police station, and much of it is in complete darkness, filled to the brim with robots of all kinds. Inspired by, other movie robots, in particular stuff from RoboCop. And after we make our way through this entire police station, we meet up with a mad scientist who is happy as can be that his system works. He says that his police will exterminate every human and demon on Earth, that everything will go to hell. Okay bro, I mean, I gotta be real, those robots are not that strong. But regardless, he then summons a squad of police robots to fight us, and we destroy them, and then must fight the system itself, turn off all these robots at once. It's actually a pretty hard boss fight, and because it's like a computer system, I suppose it doesn't really have any mythological lore, but it definitely is inspired off of other famous powerful computer systems in movies at the time. It was a kind of common trope even then, but a cool change of pace all the same. This is also the boss when I had to stop fucking around and assign Cynthia to be my patent-pending heel bitch, casting media every turn to ensure that we didn't all get stomped on by the super powerful computer. After this though, it's time we choose to visit either the Chaos faction or the Law faction's HQ. And for this run, I decided to visit the Law faction first. This is about the time I should note that if you heal at either the Messian or the Gaian cathedrals, either or, each time you do so, you will earn more invisible points for becoming part of their faction, since you'll have been funding them in order to get healed. So do bear that in mind. The biggest shifts in your alignment come from the big choices in the game, of course, but all the same, if you rely on their heals a lot, you may end up accidentally leaning towards one side more than the other. You can talk to several of the followers of the Messianic faith here, and they'll all tell you a bunch of stuff. There's a kid who actually tells you something about the golden apple in a place called Ueno, and this one priest tells you that they all must offer themselves up to God in body and soul, that God needs the power of the faithful more than ever now. They also talk about completing a grand cathedral of some sort. So clearly there's lots of plans that are afoot here in the Law side. However, most telling here is a statue that has been erected that looks exactly like Seth, but in, like, Pope robes. Well, I think we might know what became of Seth. Anywho, I mostly came here first to showcase what's going on here, level up and grind a bit, get some new demons and what have you. Oh, and I also had a Pokemon, or I mean demon battle with this fat dude here at some point. Of course, if you're gonna go down the path of being a law bro, then you could be recruited here at this point by none other than Seth himself. But me personally, I ain't doing that shit today. So why don't we go ahead and head on over to the other side of the crossroads and see what's cooking up on the chaos side of things. Well, almost as soon as we walk down that path, we are greeted by none other than Valentine again. He compliments us on looking pretty good, and that he's also become far more powerful too. He then asks us if we want to have a duel right here and now. And I mean, hell yeah man, why not? So I say yes, but then he says he was only kidding. Yeah, well, I wasn't. Anyway, he warns us that we shouldn't go down this path, that it leads to Ikebukuro, and that he's telling us for our own good. We, of course, do not listen to his LARPer ass and head forward anyway, to which he will then warn us again not to continue forward. But now that we've progressed, he figures that we ought to go and be taken to be judged right now. He then takes us to the court of Lord Yama, king of the underworld, to be judged, and warns us not to say anything to offend him. Now Yama is one of the oldest and most enduring deities in Asian religious traditions, appearing in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. He is best known as the god of death, the ruler of the afterlife, and the judge of souls. He is said to be the first mortal to die, who then became ruler of the dead, or sovereign of the realm of the dead, often called Naraka. So in general, Yama represents the inevitability of death, and what have you. As for him being here, well, he is judging our soul, primarily on the fact that we have bent so many demons to our will through the devil summoning program, which he believes breaks the pact between humans and demons that have been in place for many years. He, however, is willing to overlook this fact if we agree to help him stop the completion of the Grand Cathedral that the Messians were making such a big fuss about, which we can say yes or no to. And frankly speaking, this is one of those choices that is either strictly law or strictly chaos aligned, which means you will be leaning one way or the other after this choice. And if you want to stay neutral, you'll have to balance this out with the opposite choice of something else later on. However, because I'm a defiant little fucker, I decided to tell him to shove his offer up his ass, which lands us in his prison. I mostly made this choice so we could get the chance to fight him as well. After spending some time in prison, Valentine comes and breaks us out, telling us he told us not to come here, and then tells us to please don't even consider going to Ueno. Oh, Valentine, you should know by now, telling me that shit is only gonna make me want to do it even more. So we fight our way through this whole area, coming across Steven again, and then coming face to face with some of the demons here at the behest of Lord Yama, including Neo, or a Neo I guess, as Neo are not one god or entity, but a whole type of entity. Neo are fierce guardian deities found at the entrances of Buddhist temples in Japan. They often appear as a pair of towering statues that stand and watch at temple gates, protecting sacred spaces from evil. Its use here is really just that, a force that I guess is preventing you, who it perceives as evil, from progressing any further. It's also got a pretty cool design, I think. But after we take care of it, we eventually do get to Lord Yama himself to kick his ass, making rather short work of him, I must say, something which gives pause to Valentine at first, as he asked, how could we have done that? Defeated Lord Yama. But then he simply says, I guess that means Yama wasn't much of a threat, was he? I like the detail that he specifically drops the Lord part from Yama whenever he realizes he really wasn't that powerful. Valentine decides in response that he's gonna need to gain even more power now, and heads off on his own way. I found this pretty interesting as it shows how Valentine, the chaos hero, has come to fully embrace all aspects of chaos. After all, if it's survival of the fittest, then there's no use crying about those who were too weak to survive. But it also pushes him to gain even more power, as to not allow himself to falter and find himself in the same position. Valentine is kind of tragic in that sense, I think. He just wants to take control of his life and to not be stepped down upon by others, which it seems he was all throughout his life. And yet, he seems to be finding that this is a never-ending task in a world full of demons and gods and devil summoners. Much like the flames of a forest fire, Valentine, I think, finds himself unable to be comfortable in one place. He must continue to spread, get stronger, or else he'll peter out and be nothing but smoke in the wind. Well, anywho, on our way out of here, we then meet that same man from before who was disappointed by Roppongi, who is now here because he heard that there is a fearsome yet reliable ogre god nearby. But we kind of just killed that ogre god, so shit. You know, seeing how this dude doesn't seem to have any clear allegiance to anyone or any place, and is simply just looking for a safe place to stay, and given that he has no name and no real identity beyond his robe that he wears that, ironically enough, hides his true identity. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit here, but I wonder if he's kind of supposed to represent the people of Japan looking for meaning. Like, think about it. After the bomb hit Japan at the end of World War II, there was a great shift that happened there, it becoming a place where many religions, ideas, and influences came to sort of blanket themselves all around it. Some of it, no doubt, being the call to tradition, some being the American influence that were now there in abundance around them, some being perhaps a new path forward, a new culture separate from both of those, or perhaps integrating both of those. A proto-culture, you could say. But what was that culture? What did it mean? Did it come from new political policy? From some sort of newfound form of religion or faith? From art or new technology, perhaps? Or maybe it was some combination of all these things. Regardless, I imagine that there must have been many back then, and hell, even still, that must feel sort of lost in all of it. A wanderer in a land long over destroyed and perpetually rebuilt again. I guess if that were the case, I suppose this man coming to find that everywhere he turns is just another disappointment, something so easily collapsible, must then say something about the fragility of it all, of Tokyo, of Japan, of religion, of traditions and culture, and of everything, really. This man reflecting that very concept, that very idea that so many in this place they call Tokyo, they call Japan, are truly lost, looking desperately for meaning in a world stricken in a constant fight between law and chaos. Not all who wander are lost, and yet all who are lost may eventually come to wander. I mean, it's either that, or he's just some guy who keeps having some of the worst fucking luck ever. But I mean, I guess that's up for all of you to decide. Regardless, our next stop is Ueno, to get the golden apple that a couple people have brought up by now. Ueno is the main headquarters of the Gaian faith. Though before we go and get our hands dirty with trying to get the golden apple, we first have this rather interesting interaction with a well-dressed man named Louis Cypher. Louis Cypher, huh? Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out who this is. Here randomly in this hallway, walking among the denizens here, is none other than Lucifer himself. I would go into all the lore of him, but maybe that's best kept for another time. He tells you that he has brought someone who really wants to meet us, someone we know very well, and it's Yuriko, yet again, who tells us she wanted to meet us one more time, and tells us that she was supposed to be my partner, but that I ended up choosing Cynthia instead, or rather, I was forced to. She then says that if she can't have us though, then no one can, and she then changes shape into her true form, Lilith. But when she tries to strike us, she finds that she just can't do it, and instead tells us goodbye. I love how she goes through an entire character arc and like mental crisis over us, when we have literally not said a single fucking thing to her this whole time. Feels like the biggest gaslight of all time, every time this crazy lady shows up. Lucifer then says that he never thought it would come to this, and tells us not to take it the wrong way. What? Well, okay then. So we then go and grab the golden apple, which is being guarded by Ladon, the pagan dragon. Ladon is a monstrous serpent or dragon from Greek mythology, best known as the guardian of the golden apples in the garden of the Hesperides, which is exactly the type of apple that we are trying to get. He is often described as having many heads, sometimes 100, and possessing a tireless, ever-watchful nature. Here, he obviously doesn't have many heads, though he is quite strange looking overall, with him having an almost kind of worm mix of a snake, mix of a dragon-like appearance. I do dig it though. The golden apples themselves are associated with immortality and divine authority, famously one of the 12 labors of Hercules. The hero must obtain these apples and face Ladon, which, depending on the version, he either kills the beast with arrows and the like, or bypasses them through cunning. We kill it with unending attacks and lightning spells so it never gets the chance to do literally anything. So we now have the golden apple. So what do we do with it? Well, truth be told, it's used on something that is kind of, sort of, missed out on with this playthrough. Because beyond Ueno, we cross a particularly long bridge, where we come across Cerberus, who is what our dog Pascal turns into in the game. And we could actually have used him really early on as one of our first demons. And if we give him the golden apple here, he will come to his senses and break free from whatever curse or something that he's under. If we recruit him early on, then he would join our party here again. But we didn't do that, so instead he just runs off. Oops. I guess I forgot to, do that early on. I'm not so sure he would be of particular help at this point with the super powerful demons I have right now, but still, I figured I should note how it's more so supposed to go with him joining you again, versus him just kind of running off here. Regardless, the next stop is Destinyland, which is, it's Disneyland, but Destiny Land, yeah. Here we see Valentine again, who now simply goes by Chaos Hero, who says that he has been fighting to crush God's schemes. And then he says that he found himself a partner. This girl who looks strangely a lot like a Chaos version of Cynthia, named Ray. He then asks us if what we think we're doing is right. He says that what I'm doing is the same thing that he's doing, and that the only difference is that I'm doing it in the name of God as an excuse, acting as though I'm doing what I'm doing for a just cause, all by invoking the name of God. He then says that he will peel the very skin off of the weak frame of justice that we have, but then relents when his attacks do not kill us, remarking that we're pretty strong before running off till next time. Man, what a fucking bitch, he's always doing that. Though, in case you're wondering, he actually said that stuff because after I killed Yama and defied him, I've been law-aligned for the last little bit here. But that's about to change now thanks to Destinyland's little minigame, where you can actually change your alignment here by killing either a powerful chaos demon or a powerful law demon to get favor one way or the other. And me personally, I just want to go back to my neutral status, so we go and kill a law demon here. This place is kind of weird like that actually, that after all your choices, you can kind of course correct here. It doesn't really matter as much if you're going towards one path or the other, but for neutral players, this is something that you'll definitely want to do. So we then progress through this Disney adult-ass place until we come face to face with the demon known as Echidna. Echidna is a fearsome figure from Greek mythology, often called the mother of monsters. She is not exactly a traditional goddess, but instead a primordial creature, half beautiful woman, half serpent, who dwells in hidden caves beneath the earth. Echidna's origins vary depending on our source, but she is commonly described as the daughter of the ancient chaotic forces, sometimes Forceus and sometimes Sato, and she is also the mate of the monstrous storm giant Typhoon. Together, Echidna and Typhoon produce many of the most fearsome and famous monsters in Greek myth, including the Cerberus, Hydra, Chimera, Orthrus, and the Sphinx. Unlike many monsters, Echidna herself is rarely slain. She persists as a source of future threats and largely representing a kind of ancient, wild, and untamed forces hidden beneath the surface of the world, making her a pretty good symbolic figure as one of the main leaders of the Chaos faction. Anywho, she tells us that in a distant age, she gave birth to all living beings, and that currently the God of Law and the cult that worships it are planning to rule the world. That they say they are offering people salvation, but they are, in fact, planning to call down God's judgment from the heavens, and the cathedral that they built upon Tokyo Bay was built for their God to descend upon. She says that if that happens, then God will ask for them to obey and worship him down to their very souls, and that only a select few will be obedient enough to be chosen for the 1,000-year kingdom, and the rest shall perish. She also says that long ago there were many deities like herself, but the God of Law dropped them all into the underworld, and thus the glorious days when mankind and ancient gods lived together came to an end. She asks if we are okay with this fate, and says that those who believe in Gaia, Earth, put their faith in the old gods, are trying to infiltrate the cathedral to put a stop to the Messiah's plans. She says that in order to stop the Messianic cult, we must first destroy the angel that rules Shinagawa, and implores us to consider her pleas for help. Well, at least in this playthrough, we go ahead and take her up on her offer, and go and destroy that angel of Shinagawa. When we get there, we see none other than Seth, all dressed in his conehead robes. He tells us that he was brought back to life through the power of God, and put here to help in the construction of the 1,000-year kingdom, which he believes will bring peace on Earth. He then asks you if we would destroy Echidna, as he is but one man and cannot do it all himself. We tell him no, and then a voice calls out and tells Seth that lecturing me would be futile, and then the angel Haniel descends from the heavens to send us to hell. Haniel is an archangel found in Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, and later Christian angelology. While not a central figure in the canonical Bible, Haniel plays an important role in esoteric traditions as an angel of grace, beauty, intuition, and divine harmony. They are also connected with the Sephirah Netzach on the Tree of Life, associated with victory, endurance, and beauty. He puts up a pretty good fight here. He does have some charm moves after all, but we do eventually defeat him, much to the shock of Seth. Seth tells us that the way we're using our powers is wrong, and that it will lead to our own destruction. We promptly ignore him and then report back to Echidna. He is proud of our work, and if I were going full chaos route, this is where I would join the Gaians and her and what have you. But we are all about balance this playthrough, and so when she asks if we would help her even more and join the Gaians, the answer is no, which causes her to get pretty angry quite quickly and initiates a battle with us. We make quick work of her, and then we're actually a little bit stuck. Because you see, if I had chosen to take either the law or chaos routes, they would have teleported me to the cathedral by now, where the grand finale of our story takes place. But since they're both destroyed, we're gonna have to improvise a bit. We gotta head back to the city of Ginza, which we originally went through when we were taking on those robot guys, and head into that city's central underground area. Truth be told, this is not super intuitive, and I imagine this is a spot that if you're a neutral path player, you might end up having to look up a guide on where exactly you go next, since you kind of have nothing pointing you to go here again. But regardless, when you do get there, you'll be faced with that old man from way back at the start of the game, still alive and kicking, who tells you the following. Quote, Michael, who serves the law, is trying to build a cathedral over Tokyo Bay. Ashura, who works to spread chaos, is trying to steal it. It doesn't matter to whom you might lend a hand. You will just become a tool to which they might rule over humanity. Only you can stop that from happening. Unquote. Alright, this is it. The big finale. The Grand Cathedral is the biggest dungeon in the game by far. As soon as you walk forward through it, you will hear an argument going on in the main hall. The voice to the right side asks if we are still lost, and if we have given more thought to our actions, while the left side tells you not to listen to him, that we have seen for ourselves what happens to the powerless. Valentine and Seth both seem to think that meeting/destroying the 4 guardians of Tokyo is key to one another's plans. So either way, we gotta go and handle those 4 guys, with all 4 of the guardians being at all 4 corners of the world map. It sounds kind of like a big or crazy effort to go and get them, but it's really not. There are these houses that you probably noticed along the way that are pretty obvious to see, and if you ever went in there, there's like super powerful demons that are way above your level if you go in too early. You probably guessed there was a reason you had to go in there later, and later is now. First though, we can go and check out the stores and stuff here at the Grand Cathedral, and if we explore enough around, we can find our green cloaked wearing dude yet again, who says to us simply, quote, "I have no intention of actually becoming a follower of the Messianic faith. I'm just pretending that I am, so I stay in this town. There's a lot of people here who are thinking the same thing," unquote, which I found funny. But anyway, on to the 4 guardians. If we're the Chaos route, then we simply just talk to these dudes. But as either the Law or Neutral route, we gotta kill them. Though they are not especially hard, still I suppose I ought to tell you who they are. The first I encounter is Zokoten. Zokoten is one of the 4 heavenly kings, the powerful guardian deities in Buddhist cosmology, who protect the world and uphold the teachings of the Buddha. And Zokoten specifically watches over the southern direction. This is the lore of the other 3, by the way, including Jikoten of the east, Komokuten of the west, and Tomoten of the north. Together, they represent protectors of the nation and the land, sort of like a spiritual perimeter. Defeating all 4 of them, you might say, then opens the door for anything to take over then, be it new law or chaos. Which leads us to the moment after we've defeated all 4 of them and report back to Seth and Valentine. Seth in particular glad that we're doing well, before a sudden sound and a great quake shakes the very foundation of this cathedral. When it's over, Seth says, quote, "Yes, at last, God has cast his wrath upon the earth. Tokyo, once brimming with the power of the wicked, has been wiped away completely. You should see it with your eyes, what has become of Tokyo," unquote. And so we do, only to see Tokyo, all of it, everywhere we went, every trial we faced, every person we met, every city large or small, all of it has been taken over by a great flood. This cathedral is all anywhere anyone can go. This is the God of Law's wrath. Well, our story isn't over yet, because there is a battle going on right now in one of the few towers that managed to rise above the water. There is a fight between the gods Vishnu and Ravana, once again, one representing law and the other chaos. Seth wants to destroy Ravana, Valentine wants you to destroy Vishnu, and it's time we end their battle by destroying them both. But in order to get across the water, we end up needing to save this octopus demon that was going to be a sacrifice who, in exchange for his life, he offers to allow us to ride on his back on the ocean. We head to the tower and face off against Ravana first. Ravana is one of the central figures of the Ramayana. Ramayana being an ancient Sanskrit epic poem revered across South and Southeast Asia, as it's supposed to shape Hindus' ideals of duty, devotion, and virtue. Ravana is a powerful king of Lanka, often depicted with 10 heads and 20 arms. He is the primary antagonist of the epic, opposing the hero Rama, but Ravana is far more complex than a simple villain. He's also a scholar, a musician, and devoted follower of Shiva, but he also believes himself to be superior even to the gods, which I suppose is why he is here representing the forces of chaos. He goes down pretty easily, however, and asks if he must be destroyed once more, unable to defeat Vishnu, which then causes Indrajit to pop out from the shadows, here to avenge their father in a more difficult fight. Indrajit is the son of Ravana, and is, in the epic of Ramanya, one of the most formidable fighters, renowned for his mastery of weapons, sorcery, and divine unifying warfare. His name Indrajit literally means conqueror of Indra, earned after he defeats the king of the gods, Indra. And upon his defeat here, he says simply that he regrets it all. But enough of that, it's time to go and defeat Vishnu now. Vishnu is one of the principal deities of Hinduism, and a central figure in the Trimurti, the divine trinity alongside Brahma and Shiva. He is known as the Preserver, the god who maintains and protects the universe, ensuring that cosmic order, Dharma, is upheld. He largely represents a force that maintains the universe and staves off chaos, which again makes sense why he is representing law in this case. I've heard some scoff at the fact that we find him in a Christian cathedral when we fight him, but again, we can't forget that this is intentional. After all, if one is trying to showcase the strange spiritual atmosphere unique to Japan, what better image could there really be than that of Vishnu in a Christian church? Regardless, all these guys go down pretty easy at this point, as I'm pretty fucking leveled up by now. With Vishnu shocked he lost, not to a demon or a god, but just a mere human. Sounds like someone had too much azot if you ask me. These guys had no fucking chance to my sheer superiority now. But with that said, now comes the true final battle, as we go back to the Grand Cathedral and talk to both our Law and Chaos heroes once more. I talk to Seth first, who remarks that there's nothing more he can say to us now, that the next time we meet, he will be forced to slay me, as we stand in opposition to God. Saddened it all came to this. Valentine meanwhile tells us that whatever friendship we had before is over. The next time we meet, we'll be enemies. Just like that, both extremes are ready for the final battle, and we stand here, abandoned by both. We chose to carve our own path, deciding that neither extreme was good, that a balance must be had instead if we are to move on through the world and build something new. And so we must now face the true leaders of both sides, as well as our old friends. And while in this final battle we can choose to take either path first, I decided the Chaos Lords reside at the bottom of the cathedral, and the Law Lords reside at the top, and so it just sort of felt more thematically appropriate to go from bottom to top. And so now we must face the final gauntlet and destroy the last remaining Chaos Gods first. Starting with Surt.
Humans, failed puppets of God, all are fated to die in the end. So allow me to perform your last rites here.
Surt is a primordial fire giant in Norse mythology, associated with the blazing realm of Muspelheim. He is one of the key figures in the apocalyptic events known as Ragnarok, where he leads the forces of fire against the gods. A role I suppose he is very much playing out now as part of the larger Chaos faction. He embodies total destruction and the end of the current world, but also a step towards renewal and rebirth. He's also got a pretty cool design, one that ends up being used in many SMT games in the future, but I think he looks a little extra cool here because he's got a cape that he normally does not have in later entries. Anywho, upon his defeat, he says simply,
Ugh. I have been led to my demise by a failed puppet of God. Oh, how low I have fallen.
The next in our trial is that of Astaroth.
Oh, you lost heap, able to do naught but blindly follow the commands of your god. Prepare to die.
Astaroth is a prominent demon in medieval and Renaissance demonology, especially in grimoires in the Lesser Key of Solomon. He is typically ranked as the Great Duke of Hell, commanding legions of spirits and associated with knowledge, influence, and hidden truths. His name is widely believed to derive from the ancient Near Eastern goddess Astarte, related to Ishtar, reflecting how older deities were later reinterpreted as demons in Abrahamic traditions. Which I suppose, with what Echidna said before, fits him well as to why he's here. His design goes pretty hard as well, being this fucking long-haired demonic dude on a big serpent. And this connection to Ishtar is further noted upon his defeat, when he says simply,
I was so close to returning to being Ishtar again. Now, I have only my regrets.
Next is Ariok.
You're a clever one. Although you are not by human, now you will feel my vengeful fangs.
And I just, gotta address this one, but looking at this design, you probably noticed that bro's a fucking fat, festering vagina with teeth. I got really nothing to add to that, really, just figured I'd get that out of the way now. Beyond that, though, Ariok is a character in John Milton's Paradise Lost. He was meant to be the guardian angel of Enoch, but rebelled against God and became a fallen angel who now serves Satan. This boss is also kind of interesting in that he doesn't take damage from physical attacks, meaning you gotta use spells and stuff. But yeah, upon his defeat, he says,
"A mere human has power surpassing my own fangs? This can't be."
Before we meet the next boss, though, we first come across none other than Lucifer again, who asks us what we're doing in a place like this, and asks us if we plan to defeat Ashura. And if so, he tells us that there's an item that we might want on an island to the west, which would help us defeat him. He's referring to a sword, I believe, which I already have, but you'd think he'd try and convince us to go against the powers of God or something, or at the very least not actively try to help us defeat Ashura. Is kind of interesting in that sense, and it implies that there are bigger plans he has in mind that extend beyond this cathedral, or maybe even this whole game for that matter. Since clearly Lucifer is the actual true ruler of the Chaos faction, it is just interesting that he decides to help us in destroying the Chaos faction here. So again, it implies he either has a larger plan at play, or he is just amused in watching us do whatever. Perhaps he is aware we are going to destroy the powers of law right after this as well, and so maybe the neutral path is actually something he wants, potentially? It's never really explained, but it's something interesting to consider, because either way, Lucifer has no plans to fight us or get in our way in this game. Either way, we progress forward and meet up with Valentine, for the last time, as he sees that there is no point in trying to change our mind, but he does acknowledge what our true goal is, stating, quote,
"Harmony? Balance? It only exists to one day fall apart."
He may have some sort of point. I've been so busy fighting for a balance and harmony, stopping all of the divine and chaotic forces, that I never really stopped to consider if maintaining balance is even realistic. Am I perhaps not creating a world of balance, but that of an eternal struggle between both sides instead? Could Lucifer have wanted a world like that because, in a sense, like it or not, it is in of itself still a world of chaos? A world that could potentially be easily swayed later on, once all other forces are gone? I don't actually know, but what I do know is Valentine, as a boss battle, is pretty fucking easy. By this point, nearly every battle is though, if I'm gonna be honest. I am very well equipped with demons, like Quetzalcoatl and Kohalin, and I am beyond busted with my sword and health at this point, so we make pretty quick work of him. But in a sense, that's almost kind of fitting, I think, for Valentine in particular, because Valentine was someone who also chose to stand on his own, and thus it only makes sense, even after all this, trying to obtain power, training himself, everything he went through, that there is only so much power he could realistically garner with only himself. Upon his defeat, he says the following, quote,
"My end has come as well, has it? I couldn't beat you when it all came down to it, Dylan. I thought I had the power surpassing even the gods. Was it all just a dream? Was it a nightmare? No, it was a good dream," unquote.
And so ends Valentine, the hero of chaos. But not before his partner comes in, revealing herself to be Lilith, Yuriko, the one who really wanted to be our partner, I guess. And she too engages us in battle. She's also really easy, but again, somehow I don't think she was meant to be very difficult, as I sort of see this battle as more of a way of her finally ending her strange suffering. In her dying words, she remarks how we are supposed to be the new Adam and Eve, but then we went our separate ways, and it's why she tried to take Cynthia away from us. But it was all for naught. before finally dying. And I suppose I should note that in the context here, Lilith is a powerful and complex figure from Jewish folklore. She is often portrayed as a night spirit or demon, but her meaning has evolved dramatically over time, from a dangerous supernatural being to a modern symbol of independence and rebellion. In Jewish text, like that of the alphabet of Bin Sirah, Lilith is said to be the first wife of Adam, before Eve, and created as an equal to him, who refuses to submit to him, leaving the Garden of Eden on her own after asserting her independence. I suppose the biggest thing here being that she presents herself to you first in your dreams, but we do end up choosing Cynthia over her, so I guess Cynthia would be the Eve to us being Adam, though, to be honest, it's not like you ever actually get a choice to choose between, like, Lilith, or I mean, like, Yuriko, as she is known before. Yuriko before just sort of acts flirty and weird around you, and then vague posts and gaslights us around the entire game. Never at any point does she ask to join our party, or whatever. So to be honest with you, she just, no matter which way you slice it, feels so fucking random. Maybe one of the weaker aspects of this story, for as much emphasis as she is given, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't really come away feeling anything about her, like, at all, really. I don't really even understand her motivations, or what she even means when she says we grew apart. Like, bitch, we were never, like, a thing to begin with, you know? It almost feels like at one point she was supposed to be another option. If you went down the chaos route, you could have picked her to be your, like, significant other as, like, your other party member versus Cynthia. But there is no such thing. Even if you go full chaos route, this never happens. But whatever. The old man then warps in front of us and tells us that our battles with chaos are almost at an end, as next is King Ashura. The old man then transforms into, I guess, his true form, that of Taisheng Laojun. Taisheng Laojun, often translated as the Grand Supreme Elder Lord, is a major deity in Taoism. He is the deified form of Laozi, the legendary author of the Tao Te Ching, and is one of the three pure ones, the highest gods in the Taoist pantheon. He is a cosmic teacher and sage, a manifestation of the Tao, or the fundamental way of the universe, and a guide who reveals the principles of natural harmony, the natural order, which I suppose is why he stands for the neutral path, as it embodies harmony and balance like the Tao symbol itself. Finally, we come to face King Ashura.
Come at last, have you? A mighty warrior, fighting for the glory of God. You've even trampled upon the corpse of Valentine, your former friend. That would explain that look on your face, so very sinister. Now I will send you to the same place where you sent your former friend of yours.
So we come to the final battle with Chaos. And it's a pretty long battle, and actually rather difficult if you don't take it seriously. Now, the interesting thing here about this battle is that Ashura is not really a set entity, but again, a class of entity. In Hinduism, Ashuras are often portrayed as rivals of the gods, or devas. In Buddhism, they are a distinct class of being trapped in the cycle of rebirth, or samsara, defined by conflict and jealousy. Funnily enough, Ravana, who we fought before, would be considered an Ashura king, which, while cool and the whole opposing gods and diva aspect feels very much in line here, it is kind of a strange choice for the most powerful leader of the Chaos faction, is it not? Like, he's not even a named god or demon, but just a representation of Ashuras, I suppose. Well, there's a reason for that, but it only really comes forth when you destroy him. As his dying words, he reveals, quote,
I was so close, mere breaths away, from crushing the 1,000-year kingdom of God and claiming the cathedral too. I must acknowledge the Dark Lord Lucifer's superiority over me.
Now, that is very interesting. So then what exactly is Lucifer's role here? What happened? Did this Ashura lead a rebellion against Lucifer and claim the throne of hell for itself somehow? And if so, how? Or rather, is Lucifer just not interested in this battle and put this Ashura up to challenge as his plaything? As far as I'm aware, this is never really explained in this game, anyway. So it really does leave some questions up in the air, but I suppose there is no time for that now. It's now time to take on the powers of the law path now, starting with Archangel Uriel. You have become twisted up in a darkness most foul. Begone from this world, along with that darkness. Uriel is an archangel, whose name is usually interpreted as God is my light or Light of God. While not always listed among the canonical archangels in every version of the Bible, Uriel appears prominently in Jewish Apocrypha, Christian mysticism, and angelology. He is most often associated with wisdom, illumination, and divine insight. Spoiler, I guess, but every fight we encounter on the law side will be an archangel, so with them serving the God of Law, I suppose it kind of speaks for itself of why they are here on that side. The next of these archangels is Gabriel. You've come, have you? I see how corrupt you've become, having fallen for the temptations of the demons' unrepentant sinners. Let death be your act of contrition. Gabriel is one of the most prominent archangels in the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Known as a divine messenger, Gabriel serves as a bridge between God and humanity, delivering revelations, announcements, and guidance in pivotal moments. Next is Raphael. You fool! Are you saying that you wish for the cycle of slaughter to continue even longer than it already has? You are a cursed man, Dylan, stained with blood. Raphael is yet another archangel, with his name being God Heals, and he is best known as the Angel of Healing, Guidance, and Protection. I should note that all the archangels here do look pretty cool, although they are definitely not as unique as the Chaos Roots final bosses, because all those look very different from each other, whereas these are literally just like palette swaps with a little bit of a different fucking head model, really. It's a little bit lazy maybe, but it's still okay. They still look cool. After we defeat these three though, we end up heading up to the very top of the cathedral, up on this higher platform that's above the rest of the cathedral, that may very well be the new throne of God on this earth now. But before we face the head angel Michael, we must first do what we did with our venture into chaos. We must face the law hero, Seth. He asks us if we are still not awake to the fact that we have been led astray by the temptation of the demons. He tells us that humans are such weak creatures, so easily led astray, so easily hurt, so easily killed, and says that we are merely wandering aimlessly. That by seeking a path of neither law nor chaos, I am essentially chasing an illusion, and that if I only open my heart, I'll be able to understand that. But now, it's far too late. So we have our final battle with Seth now, and once more, it's a rather easy battle, though he does put up a lot more of a fight than Valentine, I'll give him that, as he does use quite a few spells. But in the end, he is killed, and says his final words. Is this the will of God? Am I to die once more? Was I not the one chosen by God? An offering then. Yes, that was it. I was nothing more than a sacrifice. And so ends Seth, the hero of law. And a sad end, too, as he seems that he was just but a pawn in a far larger game. And unlike Valentine, who I suppose at least saw his experience as a good dream, Seth dies bitter and sad that at the end his life was only meant to be sacrificed. All the same, after this, we come to face our final battle of the game, with that of Michael, the right hand of God. You finally come. It seems I must deal with you personally then. You have sold your soul to the devil, rejected the hand of God, which was extended to you in peace. And now you stand in the way of the 1,000-year kingdom. You are a false savior. Or perhaps you were sitting on the fence, waiting to see which way the tide might turn, in which case you must realize that means you are a coward, son of man. I would say that this final battle is tough, and it certainly can be, but by now, again, I was so fucking broken, souped up on levels and stuff, that basically, realistically, nothing could touch me at this point. Lore-wise, Michael is again one of the most important archangels in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, often regarded as the leader of the heavenly armies and the ultimate defender of divine order. His name means, who is like God. It is said in the book of Revelation that he leads his angels in the war against Satan and defeats the dragon, the symbol of evil. Thus it makes sense, I suppose, why here, at the end, we would face the most powerful angel, though I'm sure some of you might have heard the memes about these games rather infamously, having you face God as the final boss. But that's not the case here in Shin Megami Tensei 1 at least. Nor do we fight Lucifer here either, perhaps suggesting that while we might have defeated the powers of law and chaos, in truth, the battle may not be fully done yet. By the end, as Michael is defeated, he calls out to God, begging for his forgiveness that he could not be here for his arrival. Which brings us to the ending of the game. But before we see what ending we actually achieve through the neutral path, why don't we take the time to quickly consider the what-ifs? What if we chose the law or the chaos paths? Let's see what endings they would have gotten us. Let's start with law. What if we chose to side with Seth and the Messians, and only chose to fight off the forces of chaos? Well, one thing I should know is that regardless of what path you take, you will always end up killing both the law and the chaos hero. This is mostly done through them testing you, but I suppose in that sense their fate is to die by your hands no matter what you do, even if you side with them. So by the end, after you defeat King Ashura in the law ending, you will be greeted at the very top of the cathedral by the servant of God from the very beginning of the game, who tells you the following. You have done well. You do not need to fear for the law hero. He is now experiencing supreme bliss in the presence of God. However, the people who were left being upon the surface of the world are still lost and still in pain. The two of you are the saviors, and as such, it is your task to save them all. Once you have accomplished this, the new age will begin when the world is filled with joy that lasts eternally. It is the age of the 1,000-year kingdom under God, a paradise that will never come to an end, unquote. Which obviously implies that your work here on Earth is not yet done. You do not see the face of God, nor do any changes come yet. Instead, now that the forces of chaos have been destroyed by your hands, you must now save all those on Earth who are lost. What that exactly entails or means is not clearly explained, at least not now anyway. But on the whole, this ending feels kind of like the story isn't done yet. After all, you and I both know that Lucifer, no matter which route you take, still is around and has not fully played his hand yet. Nor has God, it would seem. So it feels like a bit of a hollow victory, truth be told. After all, this is a world of law, but chaos still remains. And speaking of that, what of the chaos ending? Well, in the case of you destroying all the angels and taking over the Grand Cathedral, you will once more be taken to the top of the cathedral. But this time, you'll be in the presence with Lucifer himself, the sky painted black. Well done, the god of law. His plans have been thwarted. The various deities that he cast into the underworld have been revived. And thus a golden age will come once again to the surface of the world. This world is shaped by chaos. With each passing generation, we will grow even stronger and ever more beautiful. May the cycle of destruction continue without ceasing. However, the god of law has not yet been destroyed. He is the true destroyer, for he would bring silence to this world. I, too, am but a part of him. Do you know what I mean by that, children? You should reflect on my words. So, That was pretty fucking cool. This ending is like the Law one, where it notes that the battle is far from over, even if the battle for now may be won. After all, the god of Law still exists. And as Lucifer noted, he is but part of him, just as we are as well. And thus, even in this world of new chaos, Law remains. But then, what of the neutral ending? The one that we strived for throughout the game? Well, in this ending, we are once again standing atop the cathedral, this time before Taisheng Laozhen. You've both done well. Law and order are certainly needed in the 1,000-year kingdom under God, but accepting the reign of God would bind people, preventing them from spreading their wings. A world brought into being through chaos would be stimulating and overflowing with temptations, but at the same time, such a world would be plagued by never-ending conflict. Neither of these worlds must surpass the other. Maintaining a balance between them is essential. Countless people in the wastelands that cover the surface of the world have lost sight of their direction. Please show them the way. Can you feel it now? The world, the universe. You are a part of it, and at the same time, you are all of it. Law and chaos are contained within everything as well. Feel it. Feel the connection between all things. The vibrations of every elementary particle. The undulation of galaxies. And the heart beating in Cynthia's chest. All of it. Unquote. In the neutral ending, we have seen that both sides are necessary for the world to work. That neither law nor chaos should rule this world without the other. And truth be told, to some degree, this ending kind of acknowledges the others in that sense. While law wins in the law route, the chaos still needed in people who live on this earth must still be tended to. While chaos wins in the chaos route, the law by which the very world they live in, being created by God, still very much remains, making both a hollow victory. And yet, with neutral's ending, it is still a hollow victory, but in a different sense. It is not hollow because we haven't fully won the battle yet. It is hollow because it is a battle that can never be won. Balance is something that is maintained, not something that simply can exist. Thus our battle is not done here either, but we have perhaps, in a philosophical sense, won the battle for now, as we understand that no matter what happens, law and chaos shall continue to exist, battling forever, it would seem. We've only just come to acknowledge it, and decided that they work best in balance. Of course, I have sort of alluded to it a fair bit by now, but this game, Shin Megami Tensei, the story that it has to tell, is far from finished. And in truth, we will only be able to fully take hold of this story, these themes and ideas, through its eventual sequel in Shin Megami Tensei 2, where no matter which route you take in this game, the story is a direct continuation of it. But that's a story, an analysis, best saved for another day in its own video. But while the story portion of Shin Megami Tensei is over, before we go jumping to my final thoughts, I'd now like to quickly talk about a few meta things, starting with the different versions of the game that have been released over the years, and the various differences between them. So to start, how many versions of the game are there in total? Well, there's the original Super Famicom version released on October 30th of 1992, then there is the Turbo CD version released on December 25th of 1993. Then there is the Mega CD/Sega CD version, released February 25th of 1994. Then the PlayStation 1 version released on May 31st of 2001. Then the Game Boy Advance version released on March 28th of 2003. And then finally the iOS and Android version of the game, released in 2012. And eventually again in 2014 for the States. More on that in a bit. The game has also been released on the Nintendo Virtual Console and PlayStation stores, but those are just the Super Nintendo and PlayStation 1 versions of the games being re-released. So then, what are the major differences between each version? Well, assuming that the original Super Famicom version is the base, let's see what each version added in order of release. Starting with the Turbo CD or PC engine, this version's main differences is that it adds several new features, such as a reworked soundtrack, animated cutscenes, and additional demons. In particular, the animated cutscenes are a really cool feature, which I'll give you a little bit of a taste of now, though I did show some of them throughout the video. Starting with the opening, with the wall now being voice acted.
ここを通らんとする者は何者ぞ。名乗らぬ者を通すわけにはいかん。汝の名を名乗れ。
Goto also gets this really cool introduction cutscene when you first go to talk to him in the game. Valentine, or the Chaos Hero, also gets a cutscene where he fuses with a demon, which again I showed earlier. There is also this really cool music video looking thing for when the statue of Seth, or the Law Hero, shows up. There's also a cutscene for when the Great Flood happens. Both the Law and Chaos endings have more animation going on in the background, and the neutral ending has voice acting as well.
確かに法や秩序は必要じゃ。しかし、縛られていては羽ばたけん。
One thing you'll have no doubt picked up on is the music though, and while I don't hate it in this version by any means, I do think it really lacks the punch of some of the other versions of the game, in my opinion. So that's kind of a shame. Oh, and for demons, in the Destiny Land part of the game, there are now demons that look like demonic versions of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, I suppose. These feel very Five Nights at Freddy's coded, but like way before such a thing ever was even a thought in someone's head. But that's pretty much it for the differences with this version. So next is the Sega CD version. The Sega CD, or Mega CD version, is actually quite a bit different from the SNES original. It might be one of the most unique versions of the game overall, as was the case with many Sega versions of games I tend to notice. For starters, the graphics and soundtrack have been reworked. All regular item boxes have been removed, leaving only the special chests that contain gemstones in the game, for whatever reason. Some dungeons and even parts of the overworld map have been tweaked slightly. Apparently, the Grand Cathedral at the end of the game has had much of its layout completely redesigned, which I'm not really sure why they did that, but yeah. There's also a brand new cutscene in this version of the game, with voice acting no less. Then there's even stuff like this cutscene where you see the backstory of Count Red and Count Black wanting to make Alice happy, which is mostly just a picture, but still. And there's also a different version of the Flood cutscene. Then there's a matter of the endings, which are all three fully voice acted here, and have some much more dramatic graphics. With Lucifer's true form in the Sega CD version, like, oh my god, it looks so much more fucking cool here. The wings, the hair, everything about this design is super sick. Neutral Ending also gets some new graphics and stuff too, in addition to many of the normal cutscenes in the game, as many parts where you talk with characters now has you zoom into shots where you see the character portraits, which I think is a pretty cool little addition to add some more visual flair to the game. Again, I kind of use these somewhat with the death scenes of the two hero characters, since, well, they have that in this version. I also think the soundtrack here in this game is a pretty damn good version as well. It's honestly a great way to experience the game, I would imagine, if it had any sort of form of fan translation, which is a discussion we'll be getting back to here shortly. Next is the PS1 version of the game, which is the one that I opted to play for this video. I would have gone with the original Super Famicom version, but there is some stuff about the PS1 version that made it more appealing to me. For starters, it is based on the Super Famicom version, but with upgraded graphics and 3D environments, meaning when you walk through dungeons and the like, instead of the flat faux 3D graphics, it actually just has 3D graphics, and it makes the walking through dungeons much more visually smooth and appealing to me personally. No hate to any other version though. Trust me, I've played Phantasy Star on the Sega Master System, where its first-person dungeons all look exactly like this. I have a very high tolerance for this type of stuff, you might say. But again, I just like the way that this looked better here. The soundtrack is also reworked, and I personally really love the PS1 version of the soundtrack. It's got the punchiness of the SNES version, but with a lot of added effects and new tracks that really makes it great overall. There's some other quality of life stuff too, like the game borrowing some of the gameplay features from Shin Megami Tensei 2 and applying it to this game, such as the party now being organized into 2 rows of 3 people, instead of being organized in a line from 1 to 6 like in the Super Famicom version. There's also 2 difficulty modes here, normal and expert. The expert difficulty setting retains the original difficulty of the Super Famicom release, while the normal difficulty setting provides an easier experience with a lowered encounter rate, and the player's party receiving less damage in battle, which I would recommend if you're maybe looking to get into this game, but are a little off-put by what you've heard about the encounter rate and difficulty. This fixes a lot of that, but will still allow you to play through it as it originally was too, if you prefer the genuine original experience. The only downside of this version is while it had the capacity to have some of these sick cutscenes like in the PC Engine and Mega CD versions, it sadly doesn't have those features. Nor does it have any original cutscenes either, which is pretty disappointing, but not really a deal breaker for me personally, as the gameplay, I would argue, is the most smooth in this version, which, let's face it, is gonna be the majority of what you're doing in the game. Also, unlike the other CD systems, which had really long load times, this one had much quicker load times by comparison. Next is the Game Boy Advance version of the game, which is a pretty unique version of it, featuring elements from the original SNES game, PS1 release, and kind of its own thing. To start, the soundtrack has been reworked due to the Game Boy Advance using a weaker sound chip, and while I do think people hate on this soundtrack for this one maybe a bit too much, it is definitely one of the weakest aspects of this version, which is a shame because the Game Boy Advance could actually have some really sick soundtracks. It was capable of a lot, but it seems like the soundtrack was sadly kind of butchered with how they decided to implement it here. The graphics have been updated with higher contrast colors as well, in order to accommodate for the Game Boy Advance's lack of a backlight screen in the original models, which you might enjoy or dislike. I think it looks fine, but again, it's a personal taste thing. Difficulty is now that of the normal difficulty setting in the PS1 release, with no option to change it, which kind of sucks. It also retains the SMT2 row system that the PS1 version pulled from. However, something that is completely unique to this version of the game is a new feature called A-Mode DDS, where you can go and look at a directory of every demon you've analyzed, as well as a demon bank, which allows you to store demons to allow for more space in their current stock, which is huge. This actually kind of encourages you to analyze every single demon in the game, and maybe even, dare I say, collect them all, since you obtain and collect more, which also sort of reminds me of the Persona Compendium that will be introduced in later entries. It's a really cool feature, in my humble opinion, was added to the game to give it just a slight little bit more in common with Pokemon, since the Game Boy systems were the premier place for all the Pokemon games. It just kind of seems like a really cool little addition to maybe appeal to that crowd a bit more, you know? With it now being much more easy to actually collect demons and potentially collect them all. However, there is also a third thing that the A-Mode DDS can do. It can view visionary items, which provide behind-the-scenes perspectives into characters, which are these little cutscenes that add to the lore of the game, and in particular, to some blind spots in the original story that, well, were inherent because we only really experience the game from our own perspective, while obviously the characters of Law and Chaos Hero, for example, and how even Lucifer, Yuriko, or Lilith and the like are all wandering around and having their own journeys and stories going on as well, which these visionary items explore a bit. One of the interesting revelations in these stories I found was that firstly, Lucifer is indeed the one that set Yuriko on her mission to sway us to the side of chaos right from the start, revealing a bit more behind the curtain of what exactly Lucifer was planning, though I suppose that could somewhat be inferred inferred, it is nevertheless interesting. You also notice that humans such as us are, truth be told, harder to manipulate, unlike the Messians, which are apparently far easier to manipulate. Interesting. We also see how Ozawa came to power in the post-apocalypse, how Law Hero and his girlfriend first met. We see some interactions between Count Red, Count Black, and Alice, and how they, well, I guess just interacted in general before. We also see how Chaos Hero ended up meeting with Lilith, or Ray at the time. We see the moment when Law Hero goes to heaven and is reborn. We get to see behind the scenes stuff regarding Goto and his plans to save Japan. There's also a scene that shows the heroine of the game and her reincarnation meeting in like a spiritual sense to pass on her energy to be able to help us in the future. And finally, one which seems to be Lucifer talking directly to you in a sense, sort of discussing his philosophy and asking us to search our hearts and answer if humans are closer to gods or demons at the end of the day, and if we were really satisfied with the world that we had before any of this stuff came to be, with them being sure that our heart will know the true answer. All of which was pretty cool little additions. Finally, then there is the iOS version of the game, which was a port of the Game Boy Advance release, but with touchscreen controls and the soundtrack being replaced with the far superior PS1 version. This is also the first release of the game that was officially translated into English, and that you could buy off of the iOS store back in 2014, which is crazy to think about, and is sadly also no longer available to be downloaded anymore. Yeah, the only official release of the game we ever fucking got, and it was 1, on the fucking iOS App Store, and 2, not even available to buy anymore. What shitty ass luck. However, that then begs the question, which versions can you play these days? Well, any of them, since you can emulate all these consoles pretty easily, completely for free, on everything from your computer to your phone, to even like a Raspberry Pi, etc. But what I'm sure you'd really mean by this is that if you can't read Japanese, which versions have fan translations? If that's the case, you have 3 options: the Super Famicom original, the PS1 version, or the Game Boy Advance version. All of these have fan translations, and are easily able to be played via emulators. So which version would I recommend to you? Well, personally speaking, I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. The Super Famicom version is the original game as it was originally intended to be played. That's kind of hard to beat, but the PS1 version has several quality of life and graphical improvements that make it also very compelling as a choice. And then the GBA version, while having not as great of a soundtrack, does have those exclusive features that add a bit of spice to the game. So take your pick. Like I said, personally, I went with the PS1 version because it felt like the best choice to me, since it's pretty close to the original version of the game, but I personally love the soundtrack of this version more than the original. And while the demon stalking and collecting does sound really fun in the GBA version, as well as the visual items and extra cut content, so much of those are easily available to just simply watch on YouTube, so it wasn't enough to sway me that way. But hey, that's just my choice. Play whichever version seems like the best one to you. Now, for this last section, I want to quickly discuss some of the other content around Shin Megami Tensei 1, namely the anthology manga that it got in 2001, around the time of the release of the PS1 version. This manga is kind of one of those deep cut things that most are not aware of. In fact, when I went looking for it to read online, I came up with pretty much no luck whatsoever. What's more, I came across both a Lost Media wiki forum thread that only had a few posts, and more recently, as in 6 months ago, some people asking about the manga anthology on Reddit, with many noting that there doesn't seem to be any scans of the manga online to read, let alone a fan translation. On top of that, these mangas are apparently kind of rare and unknown for the most part, which makes searching for it all the more difficult, and the likelihood of a fan translation even worse. As simply put, not as many people have actually played Shin Megami Tensei 1 as compared to, say, Shin Megami Tensei 3 or the Persona games. So it's already kind of considered a bit obscure in that sense. So then an obscure manga based on an obscure game, yeah, there's just no luck.
In fact, this manga anthology is so obscure that even on the wiki pages, which are hard to find, there is little to no info about them whatsoever. So even though the manga isn't actually lost media, it kind of, for all intents and purposes, is, since there is no easy way to read it anyway, or even look at the art inside it, as there really isn't any pictures of it beyond a few scant ones that show the covers and what have you. So what's a person to do? I suppose most would just chalk it up to being something that's just not able to be read and move on. But I'll tell you what I did, because I'm literally fucking crazy. I went through the trouble of looking at Japanese auction sites until I was able to find them available for purchase and then snatch that shit up. And I don't have just the SMT1 anthology mangas, which there are 2 of. No, I also have the Shin Megami Tensei 2 and Shin Megami Tensei If ones as well, meaning this is the first and only video on YouTube where these rare things have ever been seen in all their glory. But before we quickly go over them, I do just want to say now that I'm currently working on getting these all scanned for you dedicated SMT fans out there. And I'll have it posted to the Internet Archive here shortly, which will be linked in the description of this video and in a pinned comment as soon as it's ready. I'll probably also make a community post about it and post about it on all my socials, so I guess subscribe and follow me and stuff if you wanna know when this is available if you're really interested in it. Mind you, it's not translated obviously, but hopefully this will allow someone out there to do just that once I get done scanning them. But yeah, so never say I'm not truly dedicated to making actually true, complete analysis, retrospective videos. Patreon links down below, by the way, if you'd like to support me and my craziness. But that being said, why don't we at least take a quick look at what's inside of them so that you can get at least an idea of what they are. And having a quick look through both of these, they are not exactly what I was expecting, honestly. These don't follow the story of the game or anything. In fact, these are sort of collections of other mangaka's comics that, while obviously are all about SMT, they're all in different art styles, different tones, and have no real narrative connection to one another. Think of these as kind of short, one-shot fanfictions, really, that are mostly comedic in tone from what I was able to gather. Again, I can't read Japanese almost at all, so reading through this, sadly, I wasn't able to parse much from these stories narratively, especially since many of these are very dialogue heavy, and I can tell jokes and gags are being said here, but unless there is a strong visual element or gag that goes along with it, I'm pretty contextless as to why one character would get angry or be making a certain face or what have you. Though there are some pretty sick looking art in here all the same. It's kind of interesting seeing all these different interpretations of these characters and demons and other art styles. And again, I figured since these have never actually been posted online anywhere, at least from what I was able to find here on the western side of the internet, I figured you guys would appreciate at least having a bit of a look at them all the same. Again, I'll be posting these up in full in addition to the SMT2 and If mangas through scans later on. Now, as far as other SMT1 media goes, it's not a lot, but I did find a listing that was already sold out of this interesting looking manga on SMT titled Kobunsha SH Fireball Game Comic Series Anthology Shin Megami Tensei 4-Panel Gang Battle Zero, which sounds like a bunch of 4-panel gag comics of some sort, and probably are not that dissimilar to these 2 SMT1 mangas I have right now, but I do not have them available to see for sure. They were, however, published by the same publisher as the ones we just went over, so it's very likely. Fun fact, did you know that these same guys published a Mario Kart 64 manga under that same 4-frame gag battle tagline? And these are some of the panels from that very manga. Seems like a fun time, so maybe someday I'll try to get the SMT1 manga of that as well. Shin Megami Tensei 1 is one of the most influential games ever made, if not one of the most bold and interesting for its time as well, and is by all means a truly timeless classic.
that we over here in the West sadly got shafted on and still have no official way of playing. It's a game whose roots can be found in countless other JRPGs that would come out after. It's a game that thematically was pretty bold and truly different for its time, and it's a game that I really believe more people should experience, or at the very least be aware of. Games like Fear and Hunger Termina have direct inspirations from this game, for some of its character designs and many of its different philosophical ideals, and gods conceptually being able to be joined or fought against. Toby Fox has noted that his entire act in negotiation tactics in Undertale that was so dang popular and defined that game were directly inspired by Shin Megami Tensei. Other games like BioWare RPGs and hell, many games with morality systems owe a lot to this series, even if they ultimately go in a very different direction than it did. Hell, if you want to go back to the mother series of Megami Tensei, even Nintendo's Pokemon owes the idea of recruiting enemies and creature capture to this series, which makes it pretty funny that they tried to patent that shit with the whole Palworld lawsuit, since they literally did not do that shit first. And while its influence cannot be directly traced in the same way, in the 90s, a lot of anime specifically began centering their plots around religion, philosophical concepts, and debate, and symbolism often connected with specifically Christianity, as well as being connected to technology. Now, I suspect this creative culture of the time was more a sign of the times in Japan, is maybe something worth looking into in a future video on a different topic. But nevertheless, SMT1 was right there at the forefront of all this in 1991, which I mostly note to kind of understand its significance as a series. It's why SMT1, I believe, deserves to be re-released on Steam and possibly modern consoles. Well, really that along with SMT2 and SMT if possible. Maybe it could all be released as some sort of like classic collection or something on Steam. Or if they really wanted to go for the moon, they could even do kind of a pseudo remake of sorts that kind of updates further like a new version of the original game with some new cutscenes and what have you. Maybe that one specifically is a bit of a pipe dream. But after playing through this game, I truly felt inspired and saw something that was not only unique for its time, but something I found myself getting lost into, that I think more people should be able to easily purchase and try for themselves. Shin Megami Tensei is a masterpiece of a game, and while it's far from perfect, hell, it can be rather way too easy, I think, once you get the hang of its main battle mechanics. And many of its concepts and stories, while brilliant for their time and very original, ultimately have and will be done better in future SMT and Persona and other Atlus related RPGs in the future. It is nevertheless truly the inspiration for all of those games, the foundation if you will, and is truly a great piece of art that allowed so many other great pieces of art to blossom forth from it, including perhaps one of the greatest sequels to a game ever created. But that's a story for next time. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so very much for watching through this huge retrospective. Once again, if you want to see the bonus video of a review on Shin Megami Tensei Tokyo Revelation, then be sure to check out my Patreon or become a channel member. Also, this retrospective is a bit different than stuff I've done in the past. I have done some video game related videos before, but this is definitely one of the most extensive ones I've done, and if you can believe it, there's an even more extensive video about a video game that's going to be coming out here in about a couple weeks that I've also been working diligently on for the last little while. So if you like this stuff, then be sure to let me know, and let me know other games you'd like to see me cover and your own thoughts on Shin Megami Tensei and other such stuff. And again, be sure to hit that hype button if you happen to have watched this on mobile, and all the other related things. I really want to push this out there and see people's thoughts. But with that being said, I hope you all have a very lovely day or evening/night. If you happen to have drawn anything while you were listening to this whole thing, then share it with me on Twitter or Instagram if you have that. And with that said, until next time, this has been Dylan the Night Owl, flying off.